Okay, this happens to me, Jimmy, 3 times a year. 3.
Okay.
Usually for, I don't know, 48 to 72 hours. And I think we might be in like hour 40 of it. But just so you know, and just so Eddie knows, and just so the listeners of this show know, over the course of today and then tomorrow, I am all hopped up on the cold meds now. I think it's allergies. Like I don't feel terrible, but I definitely clearly have some sort of like, just a slight dry cough. I don't think it's allergies, actually. I think it's just seasonal cold. But I'm going to be wacky all day because I've done nothing but I'm on 7 different potential Breaking Bad lists across the state of Indiana.
Something tells me if we listen to this show and listen to yesterday's show from a wackiness standpoint, probably won't see a difference. You might see a difference in the voice, but I don't know if the overall content's
I can't chuckle either because then I'm going to end up coughing, and you don't want that.
Yeah, no.
Right?
No, of course not.
Good afternoon to you. On today is a Wednesday, is that right?
That is correct.
It is a Hump Day Wednesday here on, well, for that matter, not just on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. It's a Hump Day Wednesday everywhere right now across the globe. I don't think it's, except for in Australia. It's now Thursday there, I think, right?
I believe
that's
right.
I think they're 14 hours ahead of us. 2 a.m. over there.
Indeed. Already Thursday, 3:01 a.m. over there in Australia.
15 hours ahead of us.
Yeah,
okay.
How about it?
But that means that the Colts are back on the practice field or getting ready to get back onto the practice field. And the question then becomes, okay, so if they are on the practice field, who's in and who's out? That's what we do is we take a look at that each and every day. We know this much. Eddie, do we happen to have Eddie Garrison here as well? He is the CEO of the company. We've done this before where I name a player, and if they are practicing, you give me a ding. If they are not practicing, you give me a buzzer X. And if they have yet to be seen, so therefore their status is unknown, we get crickets, okay? So I'm going to name the player, Eddie. Are you ready in terms of their practice availability and what we expect to see when they go out for full practice today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We will begin with center Ryan Kelly, who's been missing action. Well, that was...
Man. Quick to the draw.
Right to the point.
That was emphatic and right to it, right?
No horsing around.
When Jake gets sick, do you get efficient? Is that what happens there? Is there a correlation?
You know what happens? I'm on all of the ephedrine or whatever it's called, right? So, and then it just translated right there. Right. The fake energy went right to Eddie. Okay, so Ryan Kelly is not practicing today. Thank you. That we know. Okay, running back Jonathan Taylor. So we don't know yet on Jonathan Taylor.
TBD.
Okay? Table that thought because we got more to get to on Taylor in just a second. How about his backup running back, Trey Sermon? Trey Sermon. Really?
Dealing with what was it initially labeled as a shoulder? Now it's a knee injury?
Well, it was reclarified because we've had that happen in the past where it's labeled as one
I don't
thing
know about
and
you
then
guys,
changed.
but sometimes it's difficult for me to tell whether it's my shoulder or my knee, right?
This one was just reclarified in press conference from Shane Steichen that he misspoke. It's a knee. That's what he's dealing with.
Doc, I've got soreness. Well, where is it? It's either my shoulder or my knee. I'm not sure which. Okay. So that is a knee for Trey Sermon, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about we'll go with Kenny Moore, defensive back Kenny Moore. Do we know the availability? Okay, no word yet on Kenny Moore. Thank you.
Assuming he'll be out there because he played on Sunday.
How about quarterback Anthony Richardson? That seems to be the big one.
Hey,
okay.
All right.
That's good. Wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. Oh, no word yet on Michael Pittman Jr., huh?
Last update was from Shane Steichen, says the team will monitor Michael Pittman Jr. this week. Steichen wouldn't say if Pittman would practice today. That from James Boyd.
Okay.
Therefore.
Indeed. I just was providing clarity. But yes, Eddie chose the right sound.
Any other players that we need to get to that are of major question mark? DeForest Buckner, who's been obviously was IR'd, and we're starting to enter the window of return. You know what that sounds like right there? Crickets in DeForest.
Well done.
Right? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so
come on,
a lot
Eddie.
to get to today.
He's sick.
We will hear from.
So I can't.
This might be a flu game. That could have been the start. That could have been the start of something really special. All right,
that's correct. Okay. That, by the way, that flu game was a.
I understand. I know.
Add a K and an E on the end of that.
Yep.
So we will monitor this over the course of today and get further into the Colts discussion. But there's a lot to get to today. What's that?
You forgot one player.
Who's that player?
Ryan Kelly.
We let off with Ryan.
Wasn't that what your quick draw was about?
Maybe, I don't know.
By the
I
way,
can't
in
remember.
regard to DeForest Buckner, Jake, because you asked about that, and Kevin Bowen obviously on scene for us, but as Eddie alluded to with the Crickets, they've yet to make that decision on the 21-day practice window of when they can, activate him from IR to have that 21-day window to practice before it becomes season-ending. So they've just yet to make their distinction on that.
Okay, so we will discuss and get into that, including some interesting comments from Jonathan Taylor that we will get to on the program today. But we do have a loaded show for you. Tom Dienhart going to join us because twofold, really. Number one, basketball season about to be upon us. All of the preseason rankings are out. Purdue, we expect to be obviously good this year. And in addition to that, wanted to talk to somebody from Golden Black to find out exactly where Shannon and I are supposed to help deposit the goalposts after the Boilers shock the Ducks of Oregon and the country. Friday night, under the lights, Ross-Ade, Purdue going to shock the world. Shock them, I'm telling you. You just mark my words.
I tell you what, you live life with experiences, Jake, and I look forward to you having yet another thrilling experience.
Thank you.
But
Jimmy,
I hope you
appreciate
meet the
that.
duck, though. That's my biggest thing. Or at least get a picture with the inflatable duck. One of the two.
It
Either
would
one's
be pretty
fine.
If the duck is anywhere near me, I'm getting a photo.
Good.
I can assure you of that. Joel A. Erickson going to join us 2 o'clock today. We'll talk more about the Colts with him. And then Andy Candy, a buddy of mine that lives out in Omaha. He is the sports director at the television, one of the TV stations out in Omaha, covers Nebraska football. He will be coming to the Hoosier State this week for Nebraska's sold-out game with Indiana at Memorial Stadium. That's Indiana's Memorial Stadium. And we will talk to Andy coming up in the 2 o'clock hour as well. I will simply say this, even though I don't think it's a huge talking point within the market, but it is that time of year. So, Jimmy, congratulations that your Yankees are now up 2-0, right, on the Cleveland Guardians?
Thank you. Still a lot of baseball to be played, but yes, it was a fun taking care of business at home for New York. They're up 2-0 now.
We were at the event last night where we were nominated for an award for the Spectrum Awards. We did not win said award, but it was still a wonderful evening. And our colleagues at WIBC, congratulations to them taking home a number of news awards. But it was a fun night altogether. So I didn't see the game last night, but Aaron Judge hit a homer, right?
He did. He finally got his postseason home run drought out of the way. And, they were able to coast to a nice win. Headed over to Cleveland now for the next 3.
Is there anybody outside of New York or Cleveland that's like totally invested, do you think?
I haven't looked at the
I don't mean
numbers.
financially, I mean emotionally.
Yeah, you never know what the financial side of it. I don't know. I've not looked at the numbers from a rating standpoint. I know they were up during the ALDS by about 18%, so that's good for baseball. But it's a great question. I would imagine, based on it's a 1-1 tie on the other side of the docket, that as it shifts to Queens for Mets-Dodgers, that more eyeballs are there. But that would just be on an educated guess of people loving competition.
Okay. Third, we talked to Colts, we talked that scene, and then story number 3. And this one is one, admittedly, I'm not going to say that you have to tread lightly on, but you kind of do for a number of factors. But this situation, and I'm a little bit surprised that this hasn't become a bigger conversation. I'm going to predict, and maybe that's dangerous. I'm not saying that I'm hoping for this, obviously. I want to be very clear here that this situation with Indiana basketball and allegations being made about players having to undergo rectal exams during their physicals going as far back as nearly 50 years ago, more like 45 years ago, with Dr. Brad Bomba, who was a longtime physician for Indiana University Athletics. Yesterday, towards the end of the program, I mentioned that a third player now, a John Doe, quote, unquote, John Doe, so an anonymous player has apparently joined a lawsuit against Indiana University. And let me tell you what, and I know, what's out there that has been reported, notably by the Indianapolis Star and the Bloomington Herald-Times, kind of the Bloomington Herald-Times really, I think, the main one that's reporting. But former Indiana forward Harris Miazinovich was apparently the first player to step forward to make light make light is the wrong word, bring light to the fact that he alleges that when he was a player at Indiana University during his beginning of season physical, that his physicals involved Dr. Brad Bomba doing rectal exams, which traditionally and typically are done on males usually starting at the age of 45 or 50, in that vicinity. Now, in terms of whether or not that was simply because Indiana was trying to do the most thorough physical exam possible and had the best intention of the player, whether or not Dr. Bomba may have had experience at some point with a young person getting colon cancer and felt it an obligation to be thorough to avoid that or make sure that that was not a possibility for athletes at Indiana University, whether or not it was done under inappropriate or with ulterior motivation, I don't know any of those things. I simply know that the allegation was made originally by Haris Mijatovic. Since then, Charlie Miller, another player that played in the mid-'90s for Indiana, corroborated Mijatović's allegations, and now we know a third player anonymously has done the same. It is my understanding that when this began and Indiana hired an independent firm to investigate the allegations and do a thorough inventory, if you will, of players from the past to find out whether or not there was anything to these allegations. It is my understanding that a number of different players have spoken up that, yes, they also felt at the time they didn't think much of it, but now that they have become men of the age of getting those sorts of exams done, when they have said to their primary physician or whatever, well, yes, I'm familiar with this procedure because it happened to me in college. And then that's when kind of the bell goes off of, wait, what did you just say? There really isn't seemingly a definitive, typical medical reason for somebody at 18, 19, 20 years old to undergo such a thing. Then that spawns into, if you read the fine print of the question that apparently is being asked of whether or not there was, mental or psychological anguish that came with playing basketball during that time period, I think you are going to see or hear of this going larger than where it is right now. I don't know that. I'm not hoping for that. But from what I'm hearing, this is something that can be that may very well become a very large and wide-scoped investigation. I want to be very clear again. In no way, shape, or form am I alleging that anything maliciously took place. I'm not even saying that anything did take place. I'm saying that the allegations that are being made against Dr. Bomba and, as a result of that, the connection to Indiana University athletics, I do believe that this may be something that grows to a larger storyline than what we are hearing right now. That just, from everything that people that I've talked to and everything that I've just looked into, there has not been yet a door that was closed in front of me and locked and said, no, there's nothing here. It was, well, and again, it then comes down to probably intent, although I think there are some that say the intent doesn't matter. If it happened, it happened. And I think there is definitely conversation amongst a large number of former Indiana players with one another that, yes, in fact, this happened. And then it comes down to whether or not they pursue it beyond simply verifying to the investigators that this did take place. But it just feels like it may be a very, very slippery slope. I will simply say that. I hope that's not the case. But if it is, we will try to maintain the integrity and the thoroughness of being able to let you know what is going on. I don't think it affects Indiana in its current state in any way, shape, or form, except for that it may cost the university financially at some point. I don't know. But that's at least on paper in the lawsuit That appears to be one thing that, would be of potential or of possibility. Having said that, last night, Jimmy, you obviously watched the game, right? The Yankees game?
I did.
Anything else fun and exciting going on?
Parenthood, Jake. Chance is up to like 5 ounces now per bottle, about 5 or 6 bottles a day. So we're just rolling strong. But in the sports world, in terms of that grand scheme of things, no, nothing too crazy. Now, at what
age is it not until 21 when a kid starts taking 40 ounces?
I think that's what it is. Yeah, I believe that's
because that'd be pretty awesome, right?
I think that's the goal. You start there and then you build towards that someday. Yeah. So 5 ounces.
That'd be pretty awesome, right?
35 to go.
Okay,
yeah.
so now tell me about life with fatherhood. You're waking up how many times per night?
It's hit or miss. Last night we probably had 4 or 5 wake-ups between midnight and 6 a.m. There's some nights where he'll sleep cleanly from 1 a.m. to 6. It's all variable at this point. Jake, like this show, which is part, I guess, prepared me in some way for fatherhood. So maybe I should thank you both. You got to stay on your toes. You got to always stay on your toes. You never know.
That's fine. That's fair.
Never know when.
That's what we try to do on this show,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. Along with educating and entertaining, we like to hot feet. Stay quick.
So last night, while you were giving Chance 5-ounce bottle number 3, I guess.
Sure.
Jonathan Taylor did do an interview last night. Apparently, Jonathan Taylor and was it Anthony Richardson went to the Queen of Dairies? Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
They went and got a Blizzard up in Westfield. Right?
Don't know if they got a Blizzard or not, but they were serving.
They were serving ice cream at Dairy Queen. But Jonathan
Saw them
Taylor
saucing up some tenders as well. They were playing catch back and forth with the chicken.
Do you want to know a fun fact? Speaking of young babies, I might have mentioned this before.
Sure.
I do know this. My mom, her last meal before going to the hospital to deliver me, before going into labor, my mom's last meal was a double cheeseburger at Dairy Queen, and she still to this day tells me that's the best double cheeseburger she's ever had in her life.
That's awesome.
And I have always liked double cheeseburgers from Dairy Queen for that exact reason.
That's really cool.
So bringing the two things together.
I love it. Okay. Synergy, yes.
So Jonathan Taylor went to Dairy Queen, helped out with that, but then also did an interview with Eddie. You tell me again who this interview was with?
NFL Network. It was the
NFL
Insiders
Network.
with Tom Pelissero.
So here's the thing. So Tom he was doing good work here by trying to find out whether or not Jonathan Taylor, who we now know has the ankle sprain, it was not a high ankle sprain, which is one that sometimes can compound and get.
It was a high ankle sprain.
But it wasn't when it was initially diagnosed. Remember, they came out and said it was not the severe high ankle sprain that was normal. It was in a lower area that would mean that he didn't necessarily need to be placed on a 4-game IR. That it was a sprained ankle, but it was not with the severity of, say, a DeForest Buckner, because that's what DeForest Buckner had, right?
I mean, Taylor still had a high ankle sprain, just wasn't as severe.
Right, Jake. It wasn't, to your point, it was not to the degree at which we're like Patrick Mahomes a couple of years ago or DeForest Buckner, as you outlined.
It was
correct.
thought to be a game-by-game level of sprain for Jonathan Taylor.
Yes.
So the NFL Network was asking Jonathan Taylor whether or not Tom was trying to find out for all of us whether or not Jonathan Taylor was going to play against the Miami Dolphins and when he was going to return to the practice field. So Tom was seeking answers, and here's the answer he got.
I'm definitely feeling better this week. Ankles are nothing new to me. I've been dealing with them for quite a bit. I'm doing everything in my power to be back out there again this week. The high ankles are always tricky, especially when, you're playing a high contact sport like this. But I'm sure I'm up for the challenge. Me and the training staff with Indianapolis, we're going to do everything that we can do to be back out there this week and in the coming weeks going forward, because it's just you want to be out there with your team, helping them make plays. But I have the utmost confidence in our team. You guys saw young guys stepped up. We were able to get a hard road division win, and we got a chance to come back home this week. So we'll feed off the crowd at Lucas Oil. I'm sure they'll be into it, but it won't be easy.
So here, let's simplify this. The NFL Network was seeking definitive answer from Jonathan Taylor whether or not you are going to see the beloved Colts running back playing against the Miami Dolphins in Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday, and they threw the line out there just like they're fishing for a dolphin. They cast the line out into the water, hoping that Jonathan Taylor was going to bite, give the answer. We'd have definitive answer. We'd have a direct understanding of what's going to happen. They threw that out there for Jonathan Taylor to go ahead and answer it once and for all, and what they got was this.
So you get nothing.
That is correct.
Good day, sir.
He was like, you know what? I'm just going to give Coach Speak here. I'm going to give Coach Speak, and I'm going to answer this. Coach Speak again on this program. We speak Coach Speak. I'm bilingual. When I was in college at Indiana University, I took Swahili. I forgot all of it. I was borderline bilingual with Swahili, and then there was never a situation where I ever again needed to use it, so I forgot all of it other than my name, which was Bonham Kuba, which means big man. And so, as a result, I thought, I just want in my life sometime to be bilingual. And then I got into sports media.
Yeah.
And I thought, hallelujah, I am now bilingual because I understand coach and athlete talk. I get it. I know how to interpret it. We have the elixir that we purchased that also tells us, and we can run the elixir later on this as well. But for coach speak, I'm going to give, for example, again, for the audience itself, I want them to understand coach speak. I want people to be as bilingual as myself.
It's an
Jimmy,
elective at IU
you
now,
ask
believe
me
it or not.
any question right now, and I will answer it as coach speak. Now, you ask me any question that seemingly would have a very clear-cut yes-no answer, and I will answer it in coach speak. Go ahead.
Jake, do you feel strong enough with your alleged head cold to do the show today?
The colds are tough, right? They're tough, and I woke up this morning, and I knew I had a job in front of me, and I had an idea of what needed to be done. And that's the thing is, I got guys here, Jimmy. I got you. I got Eddie. I know you guys are going to work hard. We're going to work hard.
How do you stay in the right mindset?
It really is just a mindset. It's just an understanding and a belief.
Mm-hmm.
It's just knowing, and it's losing. It's not losing sight of each day what you need to do. So I'm going to do what I've got to do, and we're gonna just assess it as we go along, and we're going to see how we feel. But I'm confident in my guys, and we're going to do the best we can. Okay? That says, again, the answer to your question then, Jimmy, was basically this. It could be summed up very briefly, which was...
So you get nothing. Good day, sir.
That's right. Thanks for asking, but that's where we are. But that's what we do with Coach Speak. I'm just telling you.
Nothing.
That's exactly correct. That's what you get.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, and look, I guess to an extent, the Colts and their media team be proud of this. They're a pretty well-oiled machine across the board with not having anybody, be it Coach, be it Jonathan Taylor, lose sight of Coach Speak.
Well, what they're trying to do right now is simply oil the high ankle, right?
Exactly.
To make sure that's good to go. I think he is going to go.
I do too.
I do think he's going to play. By the way, now through the end of the year, speaking of oiled, well done. Now through the end of the year, anybody who belongs to a monthly car wash program can save $20 off a signature service oil change and get a free tire rotation at Jiffy Lube. That's right, because Jiffy Lube does it right every single time. There's no coach speak there. You go in, you get definitive answers, and that answer is your car is going to be running great as soon as you pull it out of that bay. But when you pull in, just point to the car wash sticker on your car or on your license plate and let any team member there at Jiffy Lube know that you're part of a car wash program, and you're going to get that $20 off signature oil change and a free tire rotation. Big savings from your trusted one-stop shop for all your vehicle maintenance where you never need an appointment. Talking about Jiffy Lube. If you go to the one on Pendleton Pike, by the way, say hi to Glenn. Great dude. Great dude. Went around, introduced me to every single guy that was working and gal. Just a super nice guy, and they did great work for me. Tom Dienhart on the other side. We will get into Purdue both from the football and basketball standpoint, including one big question mark for him that we discussed yesterday. We'll get to that. To start looking now, bodies of water near West Lafayette. Obviously, you've got the Wabash. That's the big one, right? That lake, Monticello. How far is Monticello for Lake Schaefer? Beautiful Lake Schaefer in Monticello, Indiana. That's how far from Lafayette? It's 45 minutes, something like that. We got to start looking now because when we go up there and Purdue stuns and shocks the college football world and upsets Oregon, and I'm there with Shannon because I told her when the schedule came out, I said, this will be great. Ross 8 is beautiful, and there's nothing like a night game. It's going to be a nice evening. And then when they stun, and I realize that typically the goalpost thing is for 19 and 20-year-olds, and it might even be illegal. But if it's taking place, I'm not saying I'm going to go and hang off of it, but I'll march. I mean, I'll march along.
Hot take here.
Okay.
Anybody can throw it in the water. This is first man on the moon level stuff at Purdue. We need to put the first goalpost on the moon. Get that sent to space, okay?
That's not a bad call there.
Come on.
Well, here's the thing, Jimmy. Vanderbilt now they've moved the goalpost, quite frankly, on how far you've got to actually go to throw this into water. So I feel like the Wabash is kind of cheap.
Yeah, I know.
So I think Lake Schaefer is the answer. Okay. But the question becomes, what can Purdue do on a serious note against Oregon, who's coming in the number 2 team in the country, obviously a very high-powered offense. Joining us now on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Guest line, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so based on that conversation, is our friend from goldenblack.com, Tom Dienhart, who joins us. Tom, I'll begin with this. Before we even get to the Oregon matchup, it did seem to me like there was this increased conversation, at least externally, about Ryan Walters and Purdue and the direction of the football program. And then they go into Illinois, and I know they didn't win, but they did show signs of life and fire underneath them. How warm is that seat, or is that simply good radio talking point that is not taking place inside West Lafayette?
Well, first of all, I think Lake Freeman, Lake Schaefer, a little bit too far. I got a couple of spots. There's a place called Blackbird Pond. If you go up Northwestern Avenue, not too far from Ross 8. And if you really want to be creative, you talk about the astronaut stuff, just take it out of the south end zone and take the goalpost to Neil Armstrong Hall. How about that?
That's not bad. Okay, so, but again, but Vanderbilt has really made. I mean, we got to outdo Vanderbilt, right?
Yeah, I know. I'll keep thinking. I'll keep noodling. Maybe I'll tweet out some ideas.
Can it fit in the door at Harry's? Do we know? Do we know the measurements
awesome.
there? Is that possible?
That's not bad. That's not bad.
I'm trying to figure that out.
That's doable too. And just real quick too, you guys do realize that the last time the number 2 team came to Ross State Stadium, what happened? Don't you?
Yeah.
2018, Ohio State, 49-20 Boilermakers, the Tyler Trenton game. So, yeah, just keep that on your radar. I'm just saying.
Tom, why do you think I bought the tickets, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a fun night. I hope it'll be a fun night for fans.
Do you have a parking spot, by the way, Tom? You don't know where I can park, do you?
Yeah, the place I stay at is probably about a 10-minute walk from Ross State on Forest Hill Drive, so swing on over, man. I'll give you a little barley pop before you leave for Ross State if you want.
All right, fair enough. Okay,
but,
so.
I think that last week was a lot of fun. Champaign, that was bananas. And, yeah, we everybody's whispering the same stuff around a campus, right? We all understand that the seat has gotten very hot for Ryan Walters for a lot of different reasons, basically because of the team, right? I mean, that's what's going to get you. And, I'll say this. Nobody expected miracles in 2024, right? I think in the summer when the over-under win totals came out for Vegas, Purdue was like 4.5 or 5. So this is going to be a 5-7, 4-8 team, maybe 6-6, right? But one thing people did expect was a team that was at least going to compete. And up until last weekend, that had not been the case. 66-7, 52-6, 38-21. I mean, on and on it went. Not only was Purdue losing, but it was getting crushed and sometimes not looking like it was competing. So, yeah, the next few weeks could be very telling for the future of the program, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. This is probably going, Tom, too far down the rabbit hole on this, and I like and have had very good experiences with and have a ton of respect for Mike Babinski, the athletic director. But because this was, football and basketball are the 2 sports that oftentimes become, quote unquote, your signature hire, does that, if Mike Babinski feels like that decision to go with Ryan Walters is labeled with him, does he accelerate going ahead and making that change, or does that make him have more patience throughout, or is that totally not a factor whatsoever? In other words, does Babinski start to feel some of the warmth of that seat?
I think he does, sure. I'm sure he checks his emails, gets text messages. He goes out. He's very public. He sees people. He obviously knows what's going on. And Mike's supposedly not going to be working too much longer. I think he wants to retire. And where it is, maybe another year or two. He's going to probably step down. He's mid-60s, I think. So I can't imagine the last thing he wants to do out the door is hire another football coach. So he can't be thrilled with this, but he gets it. This is an economic thing. It always gets back to money, doesn't it? Next year, of course, revenue sharing starts. Schools are going to be on the hook for, $22 million, I think, to pay student athletes. And now you're going to have to come up with maybe an over $9 million buyout if you want to make a change. So then you take the risk too, right? You bring Walters back for a third year. How is that going to affect ticket sales next year? And if he promises to rebuild his staff, what type of coaches are going to want to come join the staff that is going to start next year on the hot seat? So, I think the fan base wants hope. They want to know things are going in the right direction. Last week certainly was a good start toward that. Maybe Walters can continue to build some momentum Friday night. We'll see. But at this point, I think the fan base has been pretty agitated and I think, frankly, expected more.
Tom Dienhart joins us on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line. Tom, you have to forgive me. I can't remember if I asked this of you or Alan Karpick earlier in the year. I know we've had you both on leading up to the college football season, but comparatively with where that hot seat is there any impact by the fact that Indiana appears to be world beaters now and might have an inside track to an appearance in the Big Ten championship game, let alone the college football playoff? Does seeing those two schools so interconnected with that rivalry have any meaningful impact on Walter's job security? And if we fast forward to the end of the season, if Purdue was to get embarrassed in the Old Oaken Bucket game, does that have any magnification on his job?
Yeah, you always got to beat your rival. I know it's cost a lot of head coaches their jobs over the years. If you can't beat your rival, that's probably the quickest way to lose your job. And optically, it certainly doesn't look good for Purdue when you see what's going on down south in Bloomington, right? I mean, Kurt Signetti has done a tremendous job. We all know he's benefited from a very user-friendly schedule, but he's still taken care of business and done a very good job and looked good doing it. And if you peek ahead at the schedule, like you said, could this be a team that wins 10 games? I mean, maybe it's plausible. That game Saturday against Nebraska is going to be a fun one for those fans. So, yeah, I'm sure that has to increase the pressure a little bit on what's going on here in West Lafayette, seeing what your rival's doing with the first-year coach down there. Optically, at least, right? And it doesn't cast Purdue in a good light when they're doing so well. So, and you're right, boy. If the season would end in Bloomington in that bucket game with the Boilers getting handed to them to end like a 1-11 season, my goodness. Yeah, I mean, the fan base would be an inferno here. I know that. So, yeah, I have to think what's going on there has to have some effect on Purdue and Coach Walters to a degree.
Tom, I don't know how much. Tom Dienhart is our guest from goldenblack.com. He is on the Express Pro Tires and Auto guest line. I don't know how much you have been able to watch of Memphis in the NBA preseason, but I believe at this point it's only preseason, so you can't a season make off of that. But Zach Edey, to me, seemingly has answered the question whether or not he has the mobility and physicality to get up and down the floor at the NBA pace, maybe not for the totality of a game, but certainly in the stretches in which he plays. I think he has really shown even more than what he showed at Purdue in a good way. Your overall thoughts on that observation?
Yeah, I did watch the highlights. I think he had, 23 points in about 18 minutes, maybe 9 rebounds. And he just catches the ball in the paint. He gets the ball in the paint with one guy guarding him. It's like playing an eighth grader, or a dad playing a son, and these easy baskets. So I'm as surprised as a lot of people. It's crazy to think there was one point in time where people didn't think he had that athletic ability, with the quickness, maybe to even play at the next level. And if he did play, guys, we were always told, well, he'll probably be an end of the bench guy who gives you 5 or 6 minutes a game. He ends up being a lottery pick, and now some people think the favorite to win Rookie of the Year. So, the storybook Cinderella story just continues. It's been. I was thinking about this yesterday, heading over to football practice. Because my favorite play of all time was always Glenn Robinson. I mean, I thought that he's the greatest guy, and I think you have to give it to Edey at this point. 2-time Player of the Year, getting the championship game, and just the whole feel-good story around him. And then, like I said, that feel-good story is still unfolding before our very eyes. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what he can do at the next level.
Edey probably has had, clearly, to your point, exceeded Glenn Robinson, but Glenn Robinson getting a high five from Greg Ostertag on the floor while dunking on him is still the greatest moment in Purdue basketball history.
Great, yeah.
I realize Rick Mount had some good ones as well, but it's at least from what I've seen, Tom, that was by far the best. All right, Purdue basketball obviously ranked. We'll have that discussion as well as the basketball season gets underway with Tom and the rest from Golden Black. But for now, it's all about what's going to happen on Friday night when the goalposts go into a body of water that Tom will let us know at a later time. Tom, we appreciate the time as always.
All right, meet you guys in the north end zone after the Purdue upset, all right?
I'll be there. I'm telling you. Look for the one guy with gray in his beard that's actually, people are like, that guy's way too old to be hanging from the goalpost. I'm not going to touch the goalpost, actually, now that I think about it, Tom. But we look forward to it, Tom.
Thanks for having me. Take care, fellas.
All right, Tom Dienhart on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line. All right, back to it in terms of the Colts and Shane Steichen answering maybe some coach speak. But he answered a few questions earlier, and we'll let you know what they were. Jonathan Taylor's incredibly brilliant coach speak answer when asked about whether or not he's going to play against the Miami Dolphins. Dallas Clark, by the way, going up into the Ring of Honor on Sunday, which is crazy to think that the poor guy, before he even goes up in the Ring of Honor, already has been usurped as the most famous Clark to play from the University of Iowa professionally in the city of Indianapolis. What are the odds of that, right? I don't think related, right?
No.
Dallas and Caitlin?
No.
I don't think related. But he goes into the Ring of Honor. Now, Jonathan Taylor, that's the big question mark, is Jonathan Taylor going to play? Trey Sermon, we now know, is also nicked up, if you will. He is dealing with a knee injury. I do think that Goodson plays well for that. You know, obviously, no one is Jonathan Taylor. Don't get me wrong. But if you've got to go with Goodson primarily over Sermon, I don't know that that's a huge drop. But Shane Steichen, as we know, he had an opportunity. Eddie, are you drinking the chai tea there?
Yep.
Okay. How is the chai? Pumpkin spice flavored chai tea? Or
It
just
is.
chai
Little
tea?
fall,
It
little
is.
fall flavor.
That's
Nice.
fun. Yeah. Okay. That's
Okay.
good. Any eggnog in that?
No.
Little yoo-hoo in there?
No.
Okay. So Shane Steichen was asked earlier today. Now, here's what we're going to do. We haven't done this in a while.
Man.
And I just re-upped the subscription to it.
Wow.
I know. I got the corporate card and everything.
Well, see, we used it when Jimmy was gone because you didn't have to pay Jimmy his high salary to be here.
No.
That's right.
That's good.
That's
Yeah.
right. So this is the Elixir. And for those that don't know, the
Why
Elixir
don't you
is
know?
the computer program that I bought that we take a soundbite, as we call it in the business. We take a clip or an answer, and we run it through the Elixir, and it tells us then, it interprets, and it tells us what the athlete or coach really is thinking. And this was not inexpensive, just so you guys know.
This is
okay?
AI way ahead of its time.
That it is exactly that, and it is, but its accuracy rate 100%.
Yep.
Okay. So Shane Steichen was at. Now here's what we do: we play for you the sound clip, we run it through the Elixir, and then we tell you what the Elixir says they're saying. So Shane Steichen was asked, Jonathan Taylor, is he going to play, Coach, on Sunday?
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how the week goes, but he's doing a lot better. A lot better.
You think he'll practice today?
Possibly. I don't know yet for sure.
Okay, so now let's go ahead, Eddie, if you could take that clip and run it through the Elixir. Taking a while. Okay, so here we go. The Elixir will let us know now exactly what Shane Steichen was thinking with that answer. Here we go.
Pie. That sounds good after dinner. Maybe pudding, but I like pie.
Oh, okay. So he wasn't thinking at all, right? There's not a single thing. Basically, what that means is what we get from that answer, just like the NFL Network.
So
what
you
we get from that answer is
nothing.
this.
Good day, sir.
That's right. You don't get anything.
Nothing.
We have no idea whether Jonathan Taylor's going to play on Sunday is what we're getting at. I think he's going to play.
Good day, sir.
It'll be a good day if he plays, right?
Yes, it will be.
But don't you think he is going – can't we agree to the fact that Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be on the field?
Yeah, I mean, look, based on trends of where things are headed for him, based on what I would ideally like to see with Anthony Richardson's return to the field this Sunday, which is, again, trending in that direction also, that's a tandem you want to have out there. I've stressed this the last 2 weeks. This is a game you have to have. If you're entertaining the idea, even if the ultimate goal is Anthony Richardson's development, if you're entertaining the idea of the postseason, you need to lay as much of a foundation as you can over this 3-week stretch. So far, you're 1-1. Get out of it 2-1 to this stretch of Jacksonville and coming up now with Miami and Tennessee last week, before you have Houston, before you have the Jets, before you have Buffalo, before you have Minnesota, a big gauntlet in the middle of your schedule, and then things get a little bit easier. But if you're trying to frame where their playoff hopes are, it needs to be, as you mentioned yesterday, Jake, all hands on deck. It doesn't matter if you're 100% or not. If you are a high-level contributor to this team, you are needed, and you're going to be needed again in Miami this weekend. So, yeah, I think he goes.
Now, he also was asked about Miami without Tua, correct, Eddie?
Yes, sir.
Jimmy, I'll go and I'll let you say the last name because you enjoy saying it.
Tagovailoa.
Okay. So, obviously, he is coming off of, and there's, no joking about the fact that he has the issue with concussions. He has been sidelined, and whether or not he returns. Steichen was asked, Eddie, what exactly was he asked here in terms of this answer about Tua?
I'm playing Miami without Tua.
Okay, so this is what, you obviously are going up against a team that is still in itself trying to kind of find its identity without him, right? Here's what Shane Steichen had to say.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter who's playing out there. You got to go execute in the NFL. It doesn't matter banged up. Everyone's got guys banged up and missing guys, and you got to have that mindset that it doesn't matter. And you got to go win the football game and go execute at a high level. And trust the guy next to you that he's going to make the play. Together, and that's what it's all about is playing together and finding ways no matter who's out there.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So they just got to play together no matter who's out there, right? Those other guys were on scholarship too, right?
I don't know if Eddie has the possibility, and I realize this is dangerous territory. I'm not ordinarily asking for the ball here. Eddie, do I have the ability to play sound out of my computer? Is that? No, I do not. Okay, I'll send that link to you and forget about it, because I was correct in terms of comparisons for where Shane Steichen could be coming from. And granted, we covered all the ground that we needed with the fabulous AI of our Elixir, but I found a comparison for what Shane Steichen reminds me of. I'll send it to Eddie, and we'll see if we can.
Oh, so you're saying there's somebody out there that Shane Steichen, in the way he speaks, reminds you of
the context of him dancing around injuries and clarity, it reminds me of something, yes.
Well, I mean, listen, there's gamesmanship that goes into it. I get it, right? I mean, what's he supposed to say?
Right.
Like, if you ask...
Bill Belichick's here? What happened there?
Yeah, we're on to Miami.
Exactly. What's he supposed to say, right? Like,
score more points than the other team.
Grumble, grumble. Here's
the thing. Let's run that one more time. Shane Steichen, when asked about what it's like going against Miami without Tua, and then I think the Elixir will tell us what he was really trying to say. Go ahead and play that for us if you can.
Absolutely. I mean, it doesn't matter who's playing out there. You got to go execute in the NFL. It doesn't matter banged up. Everyone's got guys banged up and missing guys, and you got to have that mindset that it doesn't matter. And you got to go win the football game and go execute at a high level. Trust the guy next to you that he's going to make the play together, and that's what it's all about is playing together and finding ways no matter who's out there.
Come on, these guys are awful. How is Miami Vice if Don Johnson leaves?
No, see, that's exactly what he's thinking, right? But he can't say that.
Right.
He can't say that. Can you imagine the bulletin board material if he says that? These guys are terrible. Tua is a guy that can throw the ball around. He's pretty darn good, but these guys are terrible. He can't say that, but that's what he's thinking.
Eddie, I'm going to let you have the judgment call. Do we have time to do this now? Or do you want to say, okay, this is what Shane Steichen, when he answers questions about anybody injured, reminds me of. This is a clip from The Office. Dwight Schrute is talking about end-of-the-world potential scenarios and preparing for them.
3 months. Could be. 4 months. I can see that happening, yes. 8 months. That's a realistic timeline. 11 months. Perhaps. Okay, wait, now really think hard about this one. 1 year. I could see that as a very real possibility.
That is exactly correct.
It's the same energy that I'm getting.
That's exactly correct, right? Bingo.
Yep.
By the way, Joel A. Erickson going to join us just about an hour from now. I promise you this. I promise you we will have more definitive answers than what we just got out of Shane Steichen. Now, I got to let you know here, since I'm all hopped up on the cold meds, that I'm trying to get things trending in the right direction in terms of this head cold, which is strictly that. I mean, like, I don't actually feel bad at all, which is weird, but I apologize to you guys that I'm occasionally coughing. But I do have a cough button. My fandom and my early slow immersion here into the National Hockey League is kind of moving in a similar path as this head cold.
Oh, really?
Yeah, off to a slow-moving start.
Poor Sabres.
Here's the thing, and I know I've mentioned this before. Years ago, I did a free agency fan fest where I sent a letter to every NHL franchise and declared my free agency as a fan because I'd never had a team that I followed in the NHL.
You were 40 years old.
And I challenged them. I got to tell you exactly how old I was at the time. 32, I think.
Okay.
I was working at Channel 6 at the time.
Did you have allegiance prior?
No.
Okay, so it's just open market free agency, no
So I sent a letter
to
every franchise in the National Hockey League and said, I am declaring my free agency as a fan, and I want you to tell me why I need to be your fan. Tell me why I need to pick your club. I had probably a third of the league write me back. Most of them simply sent back like a bumper sticker. I mean, which is cool, right?
Any season ticket pamphlets?
Well, okay. So one, Ken King was the general manager of the Calgary Flames. And he wrote me and said, I love everything about this, and I have used it as a challenge to my staff. I have sent it to my ticket group. I mean, all of it. Like, he went all out.
Wow.
And he said, you're going to get a letter from 4 different people over the next 4 weeks, and their job is to recruit you. And he left his phone number. So I called him, and the receptionist says, Calgary Flames? Yes, I'm looking for Ken King, please. I'm sorry, Ken's in a meeting. Can I give you his voicemail or ask who's calling? Yeah, my name is Jake Query. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. Oh, you're the free agency fan. Oh, it is wonderful. We had a staff meeting. Hang on just a second. And literally 2 seconds later, it's Ken. Hey, Ken, it's Jake Query. Jake, man, I love everything. This guy was so awesome. So I'm like, all right, I'm on board. And they sent me stuff, and I was on board, and I declared I had like a little mock press conference. I held up a sweater, the whole deal. Yeah. Actually, a T-shirt. So I was all in on the Flames. They went to the Stanley Cup final that year. So I will admit, I still look at the standings to see what the Flames are doing.
Sure.
But my 2 buddies and I, Mike Byron and Scott McConnell, decided that we needed to come up with a team that the 3 of us could root for together just to keep us in touch with each other. Either Byron and I talk all the time because he lives here, but and group text and everything else, with the deal being that in a year, we're going to go after this season. So next season, we're going to go together to an away game, to a home game for our team. But it had to be kind of within proximity of where we all are. So we picked the Buffalo Sabres because they're terrible. Ain't no bandwagoners here. McConnell is kind of a Blackhawks fan because he lives in Chicago. I actually kind of like the Flames. That's right. But the Sabres is our little group team. They're off to a 1-3 start. It's been rough so far. And then we recruited that Mike Vanderjagt has to come to the game with us because he lives in the area. And Vanderjagt did simply send me a text that said, you guys might be on the ground floor, but the elevator's broken. And so that's where we are. So they're 1-3, and they're in Pittsburgh tonight to take on the Penguins. And I'm all dialed in. I'm going to be watching that.
Was that the Roadrunner?
No, that was the Penguin. My Penguin, meet. I don't think penguins make that noise, but I've done that every time I mention a penguin for like 15 years. Dave First used to do that with the Youngstown State Penguins, and I stole it from him.
I feel like it was also impacted by the cold there. I feel like the cold brought up more Roadrunner than potential penguin.
That's probably
noise.
True. Well, I mean, when it comes to cold, what better than penguins, right? Okay, so speaking of cold, the Colts' rush defense has been kind of that, right? In terms of their pass rush. When I say rush defense, obviously they were a sieve in stopping the run, but their pass rush is an area, Jimmy, that I think we thought they were going to be stronger at this point than they are, and it really you want to talk about being on the ground floor, it's been stuck in neutral for a couple of weeks now. One would think perhaps against Miami you can kind of get that going. Maybe that's a good medicine for them, but the numbers are not good.
Yeah, you're looking at 9.5 quarters without a sack registered by the Colts. And here's my complication with this. Colts fans want to point out the obvious here, which is they've dealt with injuries up front. And that's fair. But there were issues around this entire defensive group where My argument this offseason was you're putting all your eggs in winning up front in the trenches to the point that if something goes wrong, you don't have as much veteran experience to lean on in other areas, especially the secondary. Last week, it wasn't that the Colts were being sieves by any stretch of the imagination. They were still trying to generate blitz and action to get pressure, and it didn't matter. It did not work against Tennessee. And from Miami's standpoint, with Tyler Huntley under center for them, you would imagine that they're going to do their best to get the ball out quick, get in the hands of their playmakers, and be as efficient and dicey as they can down the field. That's been easier said than done for them. They look like a shell of their own offense without Tua Tagovailoa out there, but it's going to be Huntley's job to be able to do that. My issue with the Colts, Jake, is that you still don't have clarity on when DeForest Buckner's coming back. Latu's had flashes of brilliance, but also he's being asked to do more and be a focal point in a way that just was not going to be the case when this line was fully healthy. He was going to be more of a complementary rusher that was not going to be the brunt of double teams or high-level focus that he could now be victim to because you had the likes of no Tyquan Lewis and no DeForest Buckner. And that's not just a this-week issue. That is an outlook for them and their playoff aspirations. This defense is entirely based on generating pressure and winning up front. And they've not been able to do it, yes, in part due to the injuries. I'm sure most Colts fans would probably cry foul about Gus Bradley. He's always the ire, in most cases rightfully so, from frustrations this season. But they don't have the ability to get overly creative with generating pressure via the blitz and trying to make up for that because it's just not in their DNA. It's not what they're built to do. They're built to win up front with their front four, and it's been abysmal through 2 quarters. And I don't know how it changes unless you fully revamp what your identity is defensively until those guys get back. And DeForest Buckner, as we mentioned, to this point, no indication they're going to activate him to that 21-day practice window just yet.
You know, Latu is interesting to me because, again, I mean, I said I thought he was going to be, and he still may be, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The defensive rookie of the year. I mean, there have been little flashes where you see, and one of the things about him that, did you ever play limbo?
I have played limbo before, yeah.
So when you play limbo, obviously there are certain people that you're like, holy cow, I can't believe how well that person is able to like move forward by contouring their body like down into a whatever, like a 90-degree angle, right?
A back bend?
A back bend, yes. And so Latu,
veteran limbo player, Eddie Garrison.
Are you good at limbo, Eddie?
No.
I would think that the head would be difficult. Like the rest of it would be okay, but when you have the 9 and 7/8 head, that would be an obstruction on the bar itself, right?
Real challenge, Jay. Let me tell you.
I'm sure
it eats them every night.
Like it getting the torso through is okay, but then that last part where you got to swivel the head under, it's like holy cow.
He's like the Paris.
It's
pole
like
vaulter.
Devil's Tower. Like you know what I mean? You've got all of
okay,
Wyoming flat, and then boom, right?
Okay, Jimmy.
What's
like,
that?
Like the Paris pole vaulter.
Very similar.
Yep.
Different.
Anyway.
Yes. Different location, but yes.
Yeah.
So at any rate, Latu, the one thing that makes him different, allegedly, is the fact that when you are on the end and you are trying to go around somebody that's pushing you outward, your body gets contoured.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that throws off one's velocity working in a rounded angle, if you will, a rounded pattern. And he apparently does not lose the speed that most do. You know, Freeney was so good because he would do the spin where he would get away from guys. Latu could just literally run around with his body like almost sideways limboed and still not lose speed.
I think the NFL calls that bend, Jake.
That is correct.
Bendy. He's very bendy.
And
athletic.
he is
are we
the
back
guy
in draft season?
He has upside,
Yes.
like the coach on the field.
Yep. Explosive.
But
first
he
step.
has had that, and there have been very small glimpses this year, the Chicago game, where you see it come to fruition. But for the most part, he's kind of been hung out there on that island. He just has not been able yet to exploit that. Now, I do think, maybe some of that is because of the fact that DeForest Buckner's not out there on the opposite end, the other bookend. There are a million factors that go into it.
You're like me where you're not worried about Latu. I just think more is being asked of him than probably would have anybody would have anticipated out of the gate. Like, I'm not worried about where he's projecting. I think he's coming along fine.
I would agree. I'm not worried about it at all. I think he is going to be a good player. Just his level of contribution so far is a lot to the party.
Yeah, indeed.
Eddie, if you could, please. Come on.
No.
I'm working under the medication. I'm hopped up on the cold meds.
Doesn't matter. You're here.
Man.
I still thought that was solid. But the other aspect of it, though, is...
See, you didn't get it from Jimmy either, so...
I did withhold at that time.
For those that are unaware, what we're talking
drum.
about is the joke drum, yes, which was fabulous, but you guys bypassed it there. The one area, if you look at the Colts' defensive line, Jimmy, the area where they have been the best is where?
I mean, it's tough for me to point out a winning spot for them. I would have said the last 2 weeks they were better at stopping the run because they were so bad the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, but it's hard for me to say they've been winning in the trenches. Where I've been most impressed with them as a whole has been the tandem still of E.J. Speed and Zaire Franklin. I know that there were issues last week, and you would have liked to have seen more when you're giving up, 38, 37 to Jacksonville the other week. That was backbreaking for everybody involved, but I felt like it's been plays made by Speed and Franklin that have turned the tide to some extent, but I can't give praise to this group when you're like Swiss cheese against Tony Pollard and you haven't registered a sack in nearly 3 games. There's not an area of positivity for me. I would give a learning curve to Latu because, like I mentioned, you're asking too much of him, but no one has jumped out on the page to make up for the losses of Tyquan Lewis and, to this point, DeForest Buckner.
You kind of forget about Tyquan Lewis, don't you?
Yes.
I don't mean that in a bad way, but their defense has been dinged up for sure.
I thought they closed out really well against Tennessee. Like, you needed stops, and they forced stops. Like, they didn't allow Tennessee to really get any traction.
Would you credit that up front, or would you credit that
I'd say
linebacking
overall,
core and secondary?
Overall,
okay.
all of it.
I would agree with that.
All three levels, as the coaches would say.
The bottom line is this. Yes, it is easy to say that Tennessee is an offense that is being navigated by Will Levis. Yes, it is easy to say that Miami is an offense who is built around the obviously playmaking ability of Tua and then the receivers they have and guys they got to get in space. Okay? Tyreek Hill, etc.
You would think with that offense you could put any quarterback there and they'd run well.
You would think, but they don't have the passing efficiency that they have, the accuracy without Tua there, right? They did one thing that give Indianapolis credit versus Miami, for example, is they have a more capable backup to come in and especially in the aerial game be able to air it out. Miami kind of lacks that, I think, with Tua not being in there. But even with that, you still have to take advantage of the opportunities that are placed before you. And if the opportunity is a Will Levis-led sputtering offense or a Tua-less sputtering offense, you can't allow them to get comfortable.
I mean, look what they allowed Malik Willis and Trevor Lawrence to do.
What's that?
Sure.
They prevented what Trevor Lawrence and Malik Willis did against them. Get into a rhythm and then just get hot.
Correct. That's the thing. I mean, so you have to give them credit. The bottom line is we can poo-poo all day long who they were going up against, or we can say, you know what, kudos to them that they did say, we're not going to do this anymore.
I cautioned a career day potentially from Will Levis last week based on what they'd done, to Eddie's point, against Willis, against Lawrence, and that didn't happen. They were able to keep him in check, and we gave credit on Monday for where the second half was. They don't, to me anyway, and it's a small sample size, they don't generate enough pressure without winning up front. That's not what they're necessarily built to do. And for the schedule upcoming, like, you might be able to get away with it this week. Miami, for all the praise, and I'm not out on him by any means, but for all the praise that Mike McDaniel has gotten for being a high-level, creative offensive mind, he's been unable to do any of it without Tua. And I would still argue, as explosive as their weapons are, A-Chain when he's healthy, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, they should be a more effective offense than they are. And maybe a bye week under their belt, Tyler Huntley's able to do that, to recapture a little bit of that mojo from them offensively. But the bigger concern for me for the Colts moving forward is less about Miami, and I'm not trying to downplay that because they have weapons, but it is the next 4 weeks that follow. How healthy is this defense at that point? And are they still struggling to generate pressure? Because if you fail in that category against, I can't believe I'm going to throw his name in here, but he's been exceptional. If you do it against Sam Darnold, if you do it against C.J. Stroud, if you do it against Josh Allen, if you do it against Aaron Rodgers, you're going to pay. And it's going to be rough outings all the way across the board. And the heat on Gus Bradley's seat is only going to grow.
By the way, when is Taylor Swift here?
Is it November?
So they've taken
Correct.
Jonathan Taylor down off of the JW Marriott, and Taylor Swift's now up on the JW Marriott, correct?
Yeah, they took Taylor, Pittman, and Richardson down. They're putting up Miss Swift.
Yeah, okay. And so her concerts begin. When are her concerts?
Next
Is it
month,
the 3rd,
right?
4th, and 5th?
I think that's right.
So the Colts are on the road during that time. So would there have been a battle for rooms like at the Conrad? Would teams not have had a place to stay?
I mean,
Are the Pacers in town that week?
the Swifties are rabid fans. I think that you might be in for
Dude,
a tough fight there.
You can't have, honestly.
Genuinely.
I'm going to look right now, okay? We'll see right now what a hotel room is going for. Eddie, can you look up the dates of Taylor Swift, please? Is it indeed the 3rd, 4th, and 5th?
That sound ballpark correct, but be official, I guess. Double check it.
Okay, I'm going to look up hotel rooms in Indianapolis when Taylor Swift is here and see what they're going for.
1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
And 4th? Or no?
No, just
Okay,
1, 2, and
okay,
3.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. You guys want to guess what we're looking at here in terms of
For hotel prices?
So we're going to go with the Saturday, right?
Where are we at? Are we at JW or just average prices? What are we doing here?
Rooms available.
Okay.
Okay, closest room you can get right now. I'm not going to say what site I'm on, but I simply put in for Indianapolis, Indiana. The closest to downtown is, I'm not going to say the names of the hotels. One on the east side, 7 miles from downtown, $429 a night.
Man.
I thought we were guessing.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Is there anything within a 5? Is there anything within a 10-minute walk of Lucas?
No.
The closest one is 6.5 miles from downtown. Okay,
That is the closest.
here's
Okay, all
one
right.
that is 11 miles from downtown. It is in it's basically in the Castleton area. And I would list this as a 2-star hotel. Do you want to guess the price, Eddie?
$375 a night.
Not bad. Jimmy?
$330.
$358.
Bang. Price is Right rules.
Okay. At the airport, you can stay at what I would list as a 1-star hotel at the airport. Eddie, you want to guess?
I was going to let Jimmy guess first this time.
Jimmy?
$195.
$196.
$499.
Nice. Well done.
All right, last one. I will say this is a 3-star hotel. 3-star hotel in the Speedway area near 465.
Eddie?
Speedway area near 465 3-star hotel.
Yep.
What was the last one price-wise again?
I think the last one I said was 358. I can't remember.
That was like 400.
Yeah, I was in the 400s. I will say 425.
Jimmy?
424.
549. Okay,
Let's go.
here's the last one. Last one for you. Ready? I did find one downtown. Found one downtown. You want to go see Taylor Swift? We have a hotel downtown. Right off of, I'm not going to say the name of the hotel. Very close walking distance to Mass Ave. Eddie?
Jimmy?
$13.50.
$1.
Look at the strategy from Edward. Let me tell you something. Look at the big brain on Eddie.
Thank you.
Inside that big head, $1,200. $1,200. Can you imagine that? Now, I would assume that all of these probably have a 3 or 4 night minimum, right? So it's probably a good thing. Now, are the Pacers in town during that time?
Let's find out.
I realize, and the Taylor Swift thing to me is fascinating because, as I said before, we've gone in that whole thing. But
no,
it is incredible. It literally is like the economies of downtowns are being revamped by these things.
Yes and no. They play the Boston Celtics the night before her first concert.
Buddy.
And that's an ESPN game.
So the Celtics surely are able to stay downtown, right?
I would assume that when the schedule was released. Well, I don't know. That's a good question.
This Taylor Swift thing's been on the schedule for quite some time.
I know last year there was something that happened. I believe it was Morgan Wallen, and there was a team coming in, and the team had to stay in Carmel because there weren't any hotel rooms
Right.
downtown for them.
I remember, of course, this was, maybe this is what will happen now for the NBA teams. When I was in high school, the Final Four was here, my senior year of high school in 91, and UNLV was staying at the Radisson, which is now, I think, a Sheraton at the Fashion Mall. But that was like the brand new kind of it hotel. And so my buddies and I were all convinced, because we were like IU basketball sycophants, that was convinced that UNLV was basically just like shelling out hundreds on the regular. And we're like, I'm telling you, those guys are getting paid. They're getting paid. They're staying in the Radisson. There's no way they're getting paid. And then they practiced at North Central High School. I told you guys that. And they practiced for 2.5 hours. They allowed us to go in and watch the practice. Jerry Tarkanian had the offense. Tell me this would not have been the best setup ever. The starting five for UNLV was Greg Anthony, Anderson Hunt, Larry Johnson, George Ackles, and Stacey Augmon. Okay, that was their starting five.
Sure.
So we're sitting there to watch the practice. UNLV's undefeated. They come in. Of course, we're rooting hard for Duke to beat them in the semifinals, or for Kansas and North Carolina to beat them in the finals, because we want Indiana to remain as the last unbeaten team. And so they go out for practice, and Tarkanian walks out. There's like 15 of us that go to North Central that are sitting in the stands watching. He throws out the basketball to Anderson Hunt, and they start scrimmaging. And they come down, and like Larry Johnson hits like a 15-footer. And then Anderson Hunt takes it out of bounds line and inbounds, and they go down the other way, and like Stacey Augmon hits a shot.
Sure.
And then Anderson Hunt gets it out, and we're like, wait a minute. We watched 2.5 hours of practice, a scrimmage nonstop for 2.5 hours, where the starting five was on offense the entire time.
Wow.
If you were not a starter, you played defense the entire time. And if you were a starter, you never played defense. They did nothing but play. It was incredible. And that was also, again, story I've told a gabillion times. Back in my day, Uncle Jake's telling old stories again. Larry Johnson had a CD Discman, which, again, we're like, these guys are getting paid. Discman are like $200 in 1991. He had I have no idea if they're getting paid. But he gives me his Discman and goes, hey, man, can you hold on to this for me during the practice? I go, okay. So finally, what did I have to do, Jimmy?
Had to take a listen to see what he's going for pregame.
Absolutely 100%. I'm like, here's the National Player of the Year, Grandmama, soon to be number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. UNLV, who was and they were unbelievable. They were so good. And they were very nice to us. It was a great experience. REM Green.
Nice.
That is the CD that Larry Johnson was listening to in
Not
1991.
Orange Crush?
I don't remember well, of course, it wasn't playing, right? It was just sitting there. But Orange Crush is on that album. Nice call, Eddie. How did you know that?
Thank you. Just from research from when we've had Dave Revson on.
Wow, that's impressive. Very impressive. Speaking of guests, by the way, Joel A. Erickson coming up 2 o'clock. We'll get you the latest on the Colts, who's practicing and who's not. A couple of interesting names on that injury list, and we'll get to that and get more clarification from Joel coming up top of the hour. Okay, so thank you for the $1,200 per night hotel room bump back here, Eddie. What we know is this in terms of the Major League Baseball playoffs is that, number one, it does feel like it's got a little bit more interest this year than in years past. And that probably is somewhat due to the sexiness, if you will, of some of the teams that are left, notably like the Dodgers and Yankees, which are national brands for sure.
Jake, one thing that we did learn last round in the playoffs is that Giancarlo Stanton is second in home run rate in the playoffs to Babe Ruth, who of course did all that in the World Series.
Why can't we leave Bob Costas behind us? Why do I?
Well, he was saying, one thing we've learned in these playoffs, and that's something
fair.
we've learned.
That's fair. We've also learned that Brian Anderson far better at this.
Do we
stage
have the
than
Bob Costas call of the Giancarlo Stanton double play? The enthusiasm of that call, Eddie?
I'll have to try and find it, but congrats, by the way, to Brian Anderson. They just announced an extension yesterday with him and Turner.
Nice. He's great.
Okay,
Love Brian Anderson.
When we did our internal radio show beer bet, each of us got to draft a team. We did a snake draft. Winner gets beer from the other two. I think I'm out altogether, right?
Yeah.
I have nobody left, which at the time people thought I had the best foursome. I had Cute Fella. I had the Braves.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I had the Tigers.
Yep.
And I'm trying to think of who the fourth was.
Would have had to have been a NL team. You the Padres?
Padres,
No.
baby?
No, I had the Padres. Who would have been? Who else?
Did I have the Phillies?
Yeah,
Phillies were my first pick,
there
yeah.
it is, yep.
Okay. Jimmy, you have who remaining?
I still have the Yankees and the Mets.
And Eddie, you have...
Oh, no, sorry. And the Guardians. Sorry.
Dodgers.
So Eddie is our lone hope here from you winning this, Jimmy, right?
Correct.
That's
How the tides
impressive.
have changed.
I was
from
down to my
MLB.
last game, Jake, and my team came through in the clutch.
Yep.
33 straight. I think it was 33.
But the Yankees are probably the favorite at this point to win it all, right?
I'd say the Dodgers are.
Even with their pitching staff banged up the way it is?
Yeah, their
Yes, I
offense.
would. Yeah.
I think their offense is much better than New York's.
Yeah, but you need good pitching, right? Now, let me ask you guys this.
I actually have a hot take on that.
On the pitching or on?
On postseason pitching.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I have a question about this, but you go ahead, Eddie, with your hot take.
I don't think it's postseason pitching that gets better. I think the players in the postseason become more undisciplined as hitters. Like, they become much more swing happy because of the moment. Because the pitching hasn't changed. I have seen so many players, whether it's Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Bryce Harper, etc., swing and miss or just simply foul off fastballs right down the middle. Those are pitches those dudes are just
I think
absolutely
there's truth to that.
smashing during the regular season.
That's fair.
I think there's certainly truth to that, but and granted, I'm not watching every team, Eddie, but some of the stuff, especially out of the pen, just has a level of nastiness that I'm not used to seeing as consistently as it's been this postseason.
And there are certainly more high leverage situations for sure for these pitchers. But David Fry for the Cleveland Guardians last week did not see one single strike against Tarek Skubal in their Game 5 game. He had runners on, I think it was second and third. Yes, second and third, one out. Tarek Skubal throws him 3 straight pitches out of the zone, not even close, swings at all 3, strikes out. They intentionally walk Jose Ramirez, and then whomever was after Jose Ramirez gets out. They're out of the inning.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my keeping me awake at night insomniac brain drop, okay, about baseball. You're allowed how many players on your roster?
Is it 26 for the postseason?
I think that's right. Doesn't it? It expands and then contracts at some point. But yeah, that sounds about right.
And typically that involves how many, and I don't know the answer to this, so my apologies for my naivete here. So I will allow one of the two of you to tell me on this, okay? Is there a maximum number of pitchers you can carry on your roster?
The max, technically, so if you had one right fielder, so you're looking at 20.
Well, not theoretically. I'm saying
18. 18.
Okay, so there's not a cap on the number of pitchers you need to have, right?
I don't believe so.
Okay. What would happen, and has this ever been tried? What I'm about to say, I want you guys, Eddie, feel free to get your buzzer if when I say this, it is the dumbest thing you've ever heard. Maybe it's outlawed. Maybe it's been tried before. Maybe I'm coming up with something where somebody's like, Query, take more cold meds. What are you talking about? Okay? But has there ever been a team, or what would happen if, as a team, you designed your roster to have fewer utility players and expect more games played by your positional players and loaded your roster heavy on number of pitchers with none of them ever designed to pitch more than 2 innings, and every single game that you went out, you had 9 pitchers that are designed to pitch at most 2 innings, but theoretically change pitchers every single inning, so that the other team is going against a fresh arm for theoretically 3 batters, and in addition to that, batters are never getting in rhythm or groove of who they're facing from one inning to the next.
Tampa Bay Rays did something very similar to that the year they made it to the World Series, because they pretty much only had Blake Snell and
they had Price, right?
No, you're thinking a longer time ago.
Okay, you're saying their most recent.
Their most recent time they were in the World Series. They had Blake Snell, and that might have been it. They may have had one other starter.
But I'm saying if they literally by design said we are not having starters, you are going to face 9 pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know this. This is just my guess.
Is it the dumbest thing you've ever heard?
No, I mean, I think you could do that because, like, the Yankees are carrying 12 total pitchers, 4 of which are starting pitchers or labeled as starters, and 8 are in the pen. And they added a pitcher to this round and cut one of their utility players. So, no, I mean, it's possible to stack your pen, but the evolution aspect that you're talking about, if I'm understanding you, Jake, would be we're not worried about starting pitching. We're just going to have 13 guys in the pen. It's going to be a different guy every inning. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, and I realize I'm speaking in theoretics here,
sure.
Okay? You go out and you say, we are going to get 9 closers. We're going to get 9 guys that are designed to be a closing pitcher. If we are expecting them to go into the 9th inning and get 3 outs on 20 pitches to close a game for us, then we're going to get a guy that does that, except for he's going to do it in the 1st inning, and then another guy's going to do it in the 2nd inning, another guy's going to do it in the 3rd inning, and we're going to have 9 guys that are designed to do nothing but bring heat or throw whatever to close stuff down for 9 innings.
I think the theoretical risk with that, and Eddie is the baseball aficionado, piggyback or push back against this, the idea of doing just that where you have 9 closers or 9 guys that are in every inning, well, what happens if one guy gets wrecked and then you're having somebody have to pitch 3 1/3 or 3 or an inning and a third or an inning and 2/3?
That's the risk you run, right?
Yeah, I mean, but that's just...
But the same thing happens with your closer. I mean, your closer can get wrecked and all of a sudden he's out there getting shelled, right?
But ordinarily, by the time you bring the closer in, you have no other life support left. If you're doing your scenario, at some point you're going to get out of order.
But you have more than 9 pitchers. You just haven't designed each game where 9 are going. You've got 15 of them because you've stacked your roster with pitchers.
I think you could, depending on how you use them, if you strategically place them to where they're not facing the same batter or sets of batters in consecutive games, it could work. Because, like, you could run into...
Well, you also could use the same guy. I mean, if everybody is only pitching 1 inning,
right,
then theoretically that guy can go 4 times in a week, 5 times in a week.
I mean, the only thing that it would depend on is there's 2 schools of thoughts against that. Pitch count getting up in one of those days and maybe not wanting to tire out the arm too much, and then a team having seen the guy now for multiple days in a row.
But again, I've got more than 9 of them, though. So I say, if I've got a 3-game, I'm the Minnesota Twins. I got a 3-game set against the Tampa Bay Rays, right? So I go, okay, I've got here are my 9 guys, but I have 16 pitchers on my roster.
Sure.
All of them are basically closers, okay? I'm going to go these 9 guys today. Then tomorrow, I'm going to use the 7 that I haven't used yet, plus the 2 that I used in the 3rd and the 5th today. Then on Wednesday, I'm going to go and mix it all up so that no guy is doing it more than, you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. I think that could work in a postseason format. I don't know over the course of 162 that's sustainable. I worry that you'd at some point put more strain on those arms
think,
and
right?
you would be
or even in a postseason.
Postseason, I think it could work. Over the course of the whole regular season, you need longer relief. You need longer inning eaters.
So my question is this, because this is the kind of thing that keeps me awake at night with my neuroticism. Am I the only person that's ever thought of this?
One of many things, by the way, just to be clear. It's not just this, correct?
That is correct,
okay,
yes.
All right.
Am I the only one the street racing near one of the main streets where I live is troublesome. And that keeps me awake at night. And then sometimes I wonder if that street racing is not related or unrelated or is related or is cause for the fact that the for some reason on Crown Hill Cemetery, which is one of the crown jewels of this town, but I don't understand why only 3 times in recorded history has the entire line of the fence of Crown Hill been intact. And who is hitting this? Like, how hard a left do you have to take on 38 to go straight into, or are they putting up brick that doesn't stick to one another and then it just crumbles?
A callback from yesterday, when you're trying to sleep and imagine your eyes are closed here and you hear the street racing going on, is that a first person or third person type of perspective there that's happening to you?
Third. When
Okay.
I think about that,
Okay.
it's third.
Right.
But again, am I the only person, though, that's what keeps me awake is, am I the only one that's thinking of this kind of stuff?
I don't think you're the only one, but I feel like you're the only one of 3 of us. Is that enough for a
Do you
focus
think
group?
anybody listening is saying to themselves, do you think more people listening right now are saying to themselves, this guy's a visionary? Or do you think they're saying to themselves, this guy's on acid?
Hold on, wait. Let me check my contract. Visionary. I think they think that visionary for certain.
I'm just curious. Like, why has there been a lot of baseball games and a lot of teams and a lot of seasons in baseball? It's like the oldest sport. Why has nobody else thought of this? Am I the only one?
I don't think that,
that's theoretically the definition of a bullpen game.
yes.
So,
hey, Jake, see if Eddie thinks that less humidity in the postseason makes the ball move more for pitchers.
ooh.
Stew on that. Think about it. We'll get to that. And Joel Erickson joins us in 20. Joel A. Erickson about 15 minutes from now, getting us the latest on what's happening on West 56. Colts getting set for the Miami Dolphins coming up at Lucas Oil on Sunday. We were just talking about a number of different things, my hallucination about baseball pitching rotations, but we get back to the main issues at hand from a local standpoint. Jerry has called in the program at 239-1070, where everybody is always welcome to join. Jerry, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
We are well, thanks. Have you called the show before, Jerry?
I have not.
You sound like a nice fella. Can we play a little Get to Know Your Listener? We've had a lot of success with his kids in particular, love when we do this. Can we play Get to Know Your Listener with you, Jerry?
You can, yes.
Okay. Jerry, if you don't mind me asking, how old a fella are you?
I am 57.
57-year-old Jerry. Okay, that would put you in a high school graduating class somewhere around 85. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, and that would be from what high school?
North Central.
Oh, hail our Panthers, buddy. All right.
That's right.
So, Jerry, let me ask you this trivia question. When you were a junior in high school, the guy that you watched and marveled over his athletic feats on the football field would be who?
Lars Tate.
That is correct. The late, great Lars Tate. They now have a Panther that is on the field there that it is named Lars. I don't know if you know that or not, but that is a...
Yeah, actually, while I was a junior, his locker was right next to mine, so I got a little residual stuff from everybody hanging around his locker.
Now, was he a cool guy?
He was a real cool guy, real cool.
And he's a big dude, right?
Big dude, yeah.
Okay. Now, Jerry, you called in about Crown Hill. Is that correct? Now, Jerry, just out of curiosity real quick, and my apologies, I'm on the cold med, so my brain's all over the place. How long have you listened to this program, Jerry?
I have listened. Well, when you guys were on in the afternoon, in the morning, and then I'm actually on my way home, and I always turn you guys on when I'm on my way home, and I listen to KB and Andy when I can on my way to work.
Okay, and what line of work are you in, Jerry?
I work at Menards.
Oh, okay, so you probably get a lot of business from the folks at Crown Hill coming over and having to rebuild the wall, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and so you were calling in about Crown Hill, right?
Yes, I was. You are not the only one. When I take my wife to work, she works at a Methodist hospital, and I see a big chunk taken out of the Crown Hill wall. I'm thinking, how in the world is somebody hitting that straight on? I don't understand it.
And it's Jerry. It's all the time. I mean, literally, I feel bad for them. The second that they get one section rebuilt. And I don't know. I mean, do you think somebody's hitting it, or is it just a wall that, for whatever, is it the ghost? Like, what's going on, do you think?
Yeah, I have no idea, but I have often thought that same thing. I'm thinking, how in the world do you hit a wall going straight on in your parallel with the
now,
driving
Jerry,
on the street?
Here's your assignment. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How many times have you been actually gone to Crown Hill, like inside the cemetery?
I've been in there a couple times.
Okay.
My dad's buried there, so I go there, Father's Day.
Okay.
So
what your assignment is this, Jerry. One of the days when you are taking your wife to work, you need to tell her you're going to leave 20 minutes early, okay? Leave 20 minutes early, drive into Crown Hill. When you go into Crown Hill, if you come from the north side, you go underneath the tunnel that goes underneath 38th Street.
Right.
There is a white line in the road that takes you to, it says, Riley Tomb / Benjamin Harrison Tomb. So you follow that road, okay?
Okay.
And if you've done this before, then I'm basically doing this for everybody else that's listening. So when you drive around and you follow that, you take that up the Crown Hill, which you would never notice is really there unless you're specifically looking for it. But if you drive up as if you're going to James Whitcomb Riley's tomb, and you drive all the way up that hill, the key is to not look in your rearview mirror or to your left when you get out of the car. You drive to the top of the hill, park your car, do not look to the left, walk up the little flight of stairs at James Whitcomb Riley's tomb, and turn around. That is the highest point in Marion County. There's actually one point that's in the northwest part of the county that's technically higher. But it's the highest point in the county. And Jerry, you can see literally especially in the winter. Excuse me, you can see the entire city. You look towards downtown, you look to your left, you can see the fairgrounds. You look behind you, you can see the pyramids. And if you look far enough on the horizon on the right, you can see the pagoda of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It is the most serene and beautiful view of Indianapolis and one of the true underrated, underappreciated crown jewels of this fine city.
Oh,
and
definitely. Yeah. I've heard that it is the high. I've heard that it was the highest in the state. I guess it's the highest in Marion County.
Highest in the county. That's correct. You can see the whole city. I'm telling you right there. You go up there, you check it out, and then that will allow you and your wife to both have a great day at work. And
Right.
and then of course, on the way home, you got to listen to this program just to balance things out, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, Jerry, we appreciate it. Hail our Panthers.
That's right. Hail our Panthers.
All right, that's our friend Jerry, who is, by the way, the official. I'm giving him the new title now. Official, yeah, he's the official in charge of lumber.
Okay.
Lumber
like
official for the company.
We do have a couple of, I know we're, going to dive into Colts more in the next hour, but we do have some updates of who's out of practice, who's not. How do you want to handle that? Do you want to?
Eddie, go ahead and get our sounders ready. Jimmy will name the player, and then you, Eddie, will give the ding or the buzz based on Jimmy's hand signal to you on whether this player is in or is out.
Would this be easier if you asked Jimmy and then he gives me the answer? Because I'm not aware.
We could do it that way. All right, so Jimmy, you have to obviously give the hand signal to Eddie.
Sure,
Now, the way that we do this, if the player is not practicing, we hear this. If the player is practicing, we hear this. And if the player has yet to be seen and is MIA, we do this. Okay? All right, here we go. We will begin with quarterback Anthony Richardson. Quarterback Anthony Richardson. Ooh, interesting. No sign of Anthony Richardson yet today. Let the speculation grow. Running back Jonathan Taylor. Running back Jonathan Taylor. No practice for Jonathan Taylor. Okay. Wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. Center Ryan Kelly. Wow.
Yeah, we already had that earlier in the day.
I think everybody's getting a day off. Anybody else we're missing here, Jimmy?
Dio Dangbo. Braden Smith. Trey Sermon. Josh Downs. And DeForest Buckner, we'd already known, but no sign of him today.
Okay. No sign of him today. Wait a minute. No sign
Kevin
of him.
Bowen. Well,
DeForest Buckner's this one here. In
yeah.
DeForest, right?
Correct. Yes.
Now, some of these, though, to be fair, and Joel can specify this, some of these are designed days off. They do get.
Sure.
I'm not saying they are. Let me rephrase that. Wednesday is a day a lot of times where veteran players can get a rest day, especially if there's any sort of nick. I mean, to be fair, the Thursday, Friday is when you really start to look at it. But Anthony Richardson's a little bit curious because, he was obviously practicing last week. All indication are that he's going to go. Not saying that he's not practicing, but he's not yet been seen.
Can I get a reprieve on that now that we have an update from our own Kevin Bowen?
We're going to do this again. Quarterback Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, so
we already do.
He is seen on video with Kevin Bowen, or not directly with Kevin Bowen, but he is seen at the complex there throwing the football.
Regarding the Wednesday thing, Braden Smith, I believe this is the third consecutive Wednesday practice that he has not.
So I was going to say
participated in.
he does do. Some of the veterans again do rest days that are designed, from one day to the next.
Like the last 3 weeks,
1 week to the next.
For Braden Smith have been no practice Wednesday, full on Thursday, no practice on Friday, play on Sunday.
I'm telling you, like that to me, that's the gig. Yeah, you got 4 shows a week, but on Wednesdays you get to take it off. Hell yeah, let's go.
It's amazing how times have changed because wasn't it Marvin Harrison or was it Reggie Wayne that say you don't pay me to play games, you pay me to practice?
Yeah, I mean for sure, right?
Which I was trying to figure out.
Reggie Wayne.
Okay.
And Marvin Harrison's the one that when they used to win, they'd get Monday and Tuesday off, and players were like, we have no, like from Sunday to Wednesday, we have no idea where that guy goes. He just shows back up and gets his job done. Joel Erickson next. We're going to roam to Lincoln, Nebraska in about 30 minutes from now. I'll talk to Andy Candy there, actually specifically Omaha, in preview of Indiana and Nebraska this weekend. Big one for the Hoosiers at sold-out Memorial Stadium. But obviously the other big football story, what we've been talking about, Colts-Dolphins, Sunday, Lucas Oil Stadium. Joel Erickson joins us now on the Express Pro Tires and Auto Guest Line. He is from the Indianapolis Star. He has been out at West 56th. Joel, we just went down the list of players that are not practicing today, so we've got that covered. I guess the question I would have for you is, of those that are listed, are there any of those that are just a routine scheduled day off, and thus there's no reason to raise an eyebrow over it, or are all of these players that are nursing an injury?
I would say like this is kind of Braden Smith's general. This has kind of been what he's been doing all season. The same thing, like Josh Downs, I'm not really surprised that he's out. Michael Pittman told us, it's going to be he's laid it all out there. It's going to be, a little bit dodgy every week for him. Those guys specifically, they kind of walked out to practice too. So those guys specifically, I think, with Pittman, it could definitely go either way, but with Downs and Braden, I think those two guys, this might just be their kind of cadence for a little while.
Joel, Anthony Richardson's going to play Sunday, right?
Seems like it.
I mean, it certainly feels that way, right?
Yeah, they said he'd be a full participant. Shane opening the week by saying that, barring a setback, he'll be back in there. It feels like he's going to play. I mean, I feel like I got bit by that last week thinking that he was going to play, and then he didn't. But it sure seems like they're proceeding as if he's going to be the starting quarterback.
Joel, in what ways do you solve the issue of no sacks for nearly 3 games? I mean, I know it's like 9.5 quarters, but with this defense, how they're built, winning up front in the trenches, I know they tried to blitz last week, wasn't very effective, and I know so much of it depends on where the injury report goes going into Sunday, but let's say it's as it stands now, and it's a similar look to what it was last week against Tennessee. What ways, if any, can this defense generate pressure outside of the standard winning up front?
Well, one of the things that sticks out is when they blitz, they're not very good at it so far. They're not great at it. I don't know. Kenny Moore is still kind of banged up after dealing with that hip injury that kept him out 2 games. He's the one guy that we know, that I think all of us know, like that's a guy who can get home on the blitz. We've seen him do it a lot in his career. I think maybe send Kenny a little bit more. The other thing is, and I don't know if this is going to happen this weekend, they need to get someone to hold the ball. Will Levis got the ball out of his hands at an average of 2.2 seconds on Sunday, which, I mean, a lot of that has to do with Tennessee just being like, please don't hold on to the ball any longer than you have to. Bad things happen if you do. But it's also really hard to sack somebody in 2.2 seconds. So they've got to start making guys hold the ball. They didn't do that against the Jaguars. They didn't do it last week against the Titans. They've got to start making them double clutch it a little bit and giving those guys a chance to get home. Because Latu, especially, I think the other day, had a couple of nice rushes that went unrewarded because the ball was up so fast.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it is, when you look at, in particular with Tennessee, I mean, they did interrupt Will Levis's timing, right? I mean, I know they may not have gotten to him, but his timing was rushed. Fair?
Yeah, 1,000%. And the other thing was, like, it was just I think it felt like we got to the fourth quarter with only one real drop back, maybe the whole game. Everything else was a bubble screen or a quick out or something like that. Like, he didn't really start dropping back until the fourth quarter, which, it's tough to sack somebody on a bubble screen.
And by the way, for people that are unfamiliar, Joel, and I mean this sincerely, I'm not trying to be like condescending with it, I think that we just assume that when we say bubble screen, I mean, I watch Clemson football, so I know, I see plenty of bubble screens, right? For those that hear that phrase but are not necessarily the nuanced football fan, please explain a bubble screen and what we look for in a bubble screen.
Yeah, a bubble screen is when a wide receiver usually takes a couple steps towards the sideline, and the quarterback takes the snap and then just immediately throws it. He doesn't take a drop back or anything. He just turns and throws it and expects the wide receiver to kind of beat somebody on the outside and make somebody miss and get yards. It's really a lot of coaches consider it more of a running play than a passing play, even though it obviously goes down in the books as a passing play. Its cousin is the tunnel screen, which is also the quarterback just takes it and throws it right out there, except on a tunnel screen, he's coming in towards the quarterback and running behind linemen who are blocking out.
Joel Erickson is our guest. He joins us on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line, covers the Colts for the Indy Star. Joel, I'm asking you to put on the full beat reporter hat here because you're observing this team on a daily basis. A week ago, based on the way they were talking about Anthony Richardson and the way the injury report was going, I was confident he was going to play, and I was surprised and kind of taken aback when he was not under center against the Titans. As you monitor him this week, and based on how careful they're going to be with him, is there a point other than game time where it is safe to say, no, he's hit this, like he's practiced so much this week or he's been a full participant so much this week that then you can safely say, yeah, he's going to go on Sunday? At what point, if that exists, is it for Anthony Richardson where you can comfortably say, yeah, he's going to go Sunday?
I think if he's a full participant all 3 days. I think that maybe because of some of the stuff they'd said and the way we'd interpreted it, we kind of glossed over the fact that he was limited on Friday. We didn't pay enough attention to that. And so I think if he's full all 3 days, there's no sign that they had to pull back the reins on him. I think it's probably safe. The other thing is if they get to the end of the week and they list him on the injury report without a status, meaning he's not listed as questionable, doubtful, or out, that's always a telltale as well, because they don't do that with players who are on the injury report unless they're going to play.
Joel, this is year number what for you on the Colts beat?
This is season 7.
So I want to go back to, let's say, year 2 or 3. My timeline gets a little bit hazy, but pre-pandemic time period, okay? Because then things got a little wonky, I realize. If you were to look to then to now, to this season, would you say that Jim Irsay's day-to-day operation and involvement with the franchise is more than, less than, or equal to what it was then?
It's a good question. It feels like we see him less, but I don't know that means that there's less in terms of what he's doing with the operation. He's obviously not as mobile as he used to be.
Right.
And so I think that might account for not necessarily seeing him outside the locker room after games and that kind of thing. It's hard to tell. It is kind of hard to tell what's going on behind the scenes. The one thing definitively is he's not as visible. But the last time we talked to him during training camp, he was very open about the fact that he was still getting back to walking and stuff again.
So, but he, by all account, there's no reason to believe that he's not as, just invested, right? And I don't mean that in a financial sense. I'm saying just in terms of his direct passion for the franchise and team and day-to-day, there's no reason to believe that has waned. I want to make that clear, right?
No. No, I don't think so. You still hear people talking about his reaction to games, that kind of thing.
Do you believe when it comes down to it, and I don't know this answer, I mean, I'm legitimately asking, like last week, Anthony Richardson, kind of the 11th hour decision, seemingly, that he was not going to go. Do you think that was made by Chris Ballard? Do you think that was made by Shane Steichen? Do you think it was made by Anthony Richardson?
I think that's a Ballard-Steichen decision, Ballard-Steichen trainer's decision. I believe Richardson, when he's mentioned it, has said, if they don't feel like I can go, then we're not going to go. It's kind of up to them. So I do think it's been the coaching staff, training staff, and I assume Ballard's involved in those decisions as well, as far as whether or not to hold him out.
Do you think that with Richardson, like we were talking about this on Monday, to me, at some point, Joel, if he's not 100%, he's going to have to go. You got to take the training wheels off and say, look, in the NFL, the reality is that you're not always going to be 100%. So was it something where they felt that he could compound the injury he was working through?
I think it's that, and I think the other thing is that it comes. I feel like they feel like that he won't have everything available to him, and they don't seem to feel comfortable with him playing in a limited fashion from a mobility standpoint yet. There's obviously many examples of quarterbacks in the NFL. Russell Wilson comes to mind. He played through several leg things. He's a very mobile guy who would play sometimes when he wasn't very mobile. There was the year Rodgers played with like a fractured bone in his leg for a while or something. And he used to be. I mean, he's not anymore. He's old Aaron Rodgers now. But before, he was a scramble around guy. There comes a point in guys' careers where the team is comfortable with them playing, even if they're not as mobile as they normally are. But it doesn't seem like the Colts are comfortable with that yet with Richardson, because Steichen has kind of alluded to the idea a couple times now that, if he's going to play, he has to be mobile. When we asked him about it today, he brought up Phillip Rivers, who he actually shorted Phillip Rivers a little bit. He said he said 225 consecutive starts. It's actually 252 for Rivers. And somebody asked, is Anthony going to have to learn to play through it the way Rivers did? His answer to that was different style quarterbacks. One's a runner, one's more of a pocket passer. Based on what I know about Phillip Rivers' injuries, some of them it shouldn't have mattered whether or not he was a pocket or a runner in general. Because there's like a back injury that he had in San Diego that his Chargers teammates talk about like as if he was unable to move most of the week and then would go out there and play. But all that to say, Steichen highlighted the mobility there, which is maybe an indicator of where they think he is as a pocket passer, that they're not comfortable with him going out where he can't run.
Joel Erickson joins us, covers the Colts for the Indy Star. He's with us on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line. Joel, looking at the opponent itself and kind of behind enemy lines in that regard, Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, reporting that more injuries are stacking up for the Dolphins. They now don't have a single healthy edge player who has a sack this season. So they're in about as much dire straits as the Colts are from trench warfare standpoint and trying to generate pressure. Where are reasons to be optimistic and perhaps reasons to be cautious with the offense, Anthony Richardson, his play style against a banged-up Miami defense?
Well, from a protection standpoint, the Colts have been pretty good at protection for the most part all season. Obviously, it's good to not have to worry about those edge rushers, but they've done a good job. They've done a good job with that most of the season so far. I think the corners, the veteran corners, it's Jalen Ramsey and Kendall Fuller, I believe, are the corners for the Dolphins. That's maybe a little bit of a concern, just because those guys, those are guys who played a lot and can bait guys and recognize stuff and drop off of coverages and disguise things that make it hard on a young quarterback. I think that's one. And then I think on the offense of the ball, or I guess for the Colts, the defensive side of the ball, this is a run defense that it's been a little better than it was the first 2 weeks, but it still had some issues. Mike McDaniel's known for having a good running game. They haven't this year because everyone can just stack the line against them. But I'd be concerned about that, specifically McDaniel's ability to get wide and kind of attack them on the perimeter. And then the other thing is just, without Tua Tagovailoa out there, even with Snoop Huntley averaging a paltry 5.5 yards per attempt, all it takes is one time for Tyreek Hill to beat a blown coverage, and you've got an 80-yard touchdown. So that's another area of concern.
Joel, if you were to look back at the beginning of the season, leaving training camp, and you looked at, let's say you made a list of now what's going on there? Or is everything going okay? Everybody okay? Yeah. Is it what's
that's those darn planes from that airport
that was not an airplane. That was a semi-truck, Joel. Please, for the love of God, get out of the middle of the road.
I feel like they cleared the Colts building by like 3 feet. I know it's more than that, but it feels like it's like super low.
That was impressive. Did the guy wave at least? We're landlocked in here, Joel.
He's still not very high. He's over by the park on the other side. And he's still not very high.
What's the weather like outside? By the way, is it sunny out?
It's not sunny. It's overcast. It's like mid-50s. It's fall. Feels like fall.
Yeah. Welcome to October. Okay, so if you were to make a list at the beginning, like when the season began, and for each player you were to score what you anticipated their contribution to be this year, and then now you were to go and actually score what their contribution has been, which player positive and which player negative would have the greatest deviation from what you anticipated?
Sam Womack would have the biggest positive deviation.
Yeah, he's been good, right?
Didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming. Everyone uses different coverage stats. I use Sports Info Solutions. They've got him giving up just like 33% completions, and I think it's 2.8 yards per attempt, which is impressive. Didn't see that coming when he came over from the Niners. He's already played more snaps than he did in any season with the Niners. I think on the other side of it, I just don't know. I expected more difference-making plays from the linebackers so far. They're racking up tackles, but there's also been times when, EJ Speed has had trouble with missed tackles against Jacksonville. Zaire Franklin's had times where he's getting blocked very far down the field, which has not really been his thing so far. I kind of expected them to be a bigger part of this defense, even with the injuries that they've suffered elsewhere.
Is there the landscape of the AFC? Joel Erickson with us covers the Colts for the Indy Stars with on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line. Is there a legitimate window in your mind for them if they're mapping out playoff contention hopes? They're really vying for that 6 or 7 seed compared to the logjam that's around them, the likes of the Chargers, the Steelers, the Broncos. I mean, I guess you're jockeying for position with the Dolphins, but I think they're going to continue to fade until Tua, if he does come back, comes back. The Jets, the Bengals, where do you view them realistically in that picture, knowing the gauntlet?
Here we go again.
Okay.
He's back again.
Joel, is he doing tricks? Again. What's going on? Does he have a sign behind him? What's going on here?
Loop. That had to be a loop-de-loop. There's no chance. Basically, where do they rank right now in terms of the rest of the teams jockeying for that same position for those 2 playoff spots, Joel?
So I think the biggest thing, if the Colts are in the NFC, where the Packers are, I think, currently out of the playoffs at 4-2 with an incredible point differential, you wouldn't feel good about it. I wouldn't feel good about it. They're in the AFC, and really beyond like the 4 division winners, there's a lot to not like about pretty much every other team in the rest of the AFC. I think if the Colts can get to 6-6, because they play the Dolphins this week, and then you get into a stretch of the schedule that's full of very difficult teams to play. If you can get to 6-6, you look at that 5-game finishing stretch, which I'm not going to get these in the right order, but it's New England, Tennessee at home, Jacksonville at home, Denver on the road, and New York, and the Giants on the road.
You started strong, but yeah, you didn't go in order. You started strong there. You got New England out of the gate, but yes, you named them all, and that's the real part of where I don't want to say survive and advance necessarily because it doesn't carry the same connotation as that general term, but yeah, if you're looking at 2-4 in the stretch of Houston, Minnesota, Buffalo, New York, and Detroit, as long as you beat Miami, I think to your point, Joel, you're happy with where you're at to close the year.
Yeah, I think you've got a real chance if you can get to 6-6, considering like where some of those teams are going to be, just given where they're at right now. I don't think any of us are thinking that Jacksonville and Tennessee are going to be in good spots in December. Plus, when Jacksonville comes here, they're not the same as when the Colts play them on the road.
The Magic Powers aren't active. They're not there.
Yeah. So, and the Broncos to me kind of feel like a team that I don't really understand how their record is where it is right now. Anyway. So yeah, there's if you can get to 6-6, you've got a real shot there at the back end of the schedule because you look at these other teams, like who scares you that's in the wild card race? You could say Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh's doing weird things with their quarterback position now that no one fully understands. And
yeah.
Who knows how that's going to change things.
Joel, by the way, I've got this app on my phone that can look up flights. I kid you not. Like when there's a plane overhead, I love it. Like I'll look at it and I'm like, I wonder where those people are. Am I the only one this ever happens to? You see some plane like way up there and you're like, where's that going? And then I'll look it up. Just so you know, that plane that just went overhead for you is 1,307 feet into the air. And I'm not going to say the name of it, but it is a private plane that belongs to one of the local universities. So there you go.
Okay. it felt like it was 4 feet off the ground.
Well, just so you know, it started at here we go. As a matter of fact, it says here that at 2:16 it was at 616 feet above the ground. So that's probably Next time, just wave to them. All right.
I have in 7 years I've never gotten used to when we're standing at practice and someone is coming in to land at that airport, and if you didn't know that there's an airport back there, you think that the plane is going down right behind the trees.
Totally. It's the Eagle Creek Airport, right?
Yeah.
Well, I was one time, there's a little airport up in Fishers, and years ago I was eating dinner. I kid you not, and same thing. A plane came in, and we're like, that plane is absolutely going down. It did not look good. And my buddy and I left to drive because we were convinced the plane was going down, and we actually drove up to the runway, and the kid got out, and his dad was congratulating him on his first landing. I kid you not. And we're like, well, that explains it. That explains it. I know it's shocking that I was putting myself into the other people's business where I did not belong. All right, Joel, we appreciate it.
That airport off of Allisonville?
Yes. It was a little tiny one back then. It's bigger now.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, up by where the beer ferry, not to give out where you live, but the general vicinity.
1,000%.
Not far from the beer ferry delivery that had to drop by,
Yep.
Showed up on your porch. All right, Joel. A couple of months from now, we'll be going back out to Milwaukee, and the beer ferry will make another delivery for you, but you need to get it because it'll be cold outside, and we want it to freeze on the porch instead of me just leaving it in the middle of the night. But nonetheless.
The beer ferry is much better than the tooth ferry, by the way.
That is correct. And real. Sorry, kids. Okay, Joel, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, all right?
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
All right, Joel A. Erickson joining us on the Express Pro Tire and Auto Guest Line. That plane now is at 1,500 feet. Doesn't say where it's going. But I'm telling you, this app on my phone is the greatest thing ever.
I just hope they're having a good time.
They're spying on Colts practice. That's what they're doing.
That's probably possible. Do you guys ever do this, though, where you're flying and you see, like, a plane, like, way up, and you're like, where in the, like, and then I'll look it up.
I have before, sure. It's been a minute, but I've done that, yeah.
I'm like, wow, like, it's crazy that plane's going from, like, I've seen it before where it's
going
like
from
just
there
a
to there,
dot way up there, and then you look it up, and it's like that thing's going from San Francisco to like Amsterdam.
I feel like any activity like that with you, when you ask that to us, we'll be like, yeah, we've done it once, but for you, it's about 8 times a day. Like,
There's
oh man,
no question.
Southwest flight.
I also know that on the way home, you call Eddie and you go, you haven't actually done that either, Eddie. We're just humoring the old guy. But speaking of travel, we're going to go to Nebraska and get the viewpoint of the Huskers. We're going to do it next. if one is to go to the website of KETV Television in Omaha, Nebraska, and read the bio of Andy Kendi, who is the sports director there, it mentions that he has covered numerous sports bowl games, including some that don't exist. Then in parentheses it says, anyone remember the Copper Bowl? Any Indiana fan does, because that's the last bowl game that Indiana won. It happened in my freshman year of college, if that tells you how long ago it was. But the Hoosiers are already bowl eligible. But now it gets real, because coming to Memorial Stadium, it is sold out in Bloomington on Saturday for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And Andy joins us now on the Express Pro Tire and Auto guest line to preview the game and give us the viewpoint of the other red and white. Andy, how are you?
Good. You guys don't remember that famous Copper Bowl with Ron Dane and Chris Mufutu Mafala, Utah versus Wisconsin back in the mid-'90s? You don't remember that one?
Well, here's the thing. I do, only because people were actually here. That's known as the 5-year anniversary game since Vaughn Dunbar ran all over Baylor and Indiana won their last bowl game. Yes. So we were celebrating. We were celebrating, Andy, the drought, right?
Yeah, right.
But look, here it is. I mean, let me begin with this. I mean, I have always said, and I think you and I have maybe even discussed this once before, that Nebraska football is very similar to me to Indiana basketball in so many different ways. And I realize just the incredible passion for Nebraska the fan base has. And it looks like, Matt Rule's got them going in the right direction. What is the vantage point about Indiana? Is this seen as, come on, it's Indiana, or is Indiana seen now as a sudden newfound team you got to take seriously?
Well, it's interesting you said it. We had this discussion yesterday with a colleague of mine, and he referenced Indiana basketball equivalent to Nebraska football, and that Indiana football is kind of equivalent to Nebraska basketball, where it's a fun story, but you're kind of biding time until basketball season, right? Well, this year, you bring in a whole bunch of transfers, much like Nebraska basketball did a year ago, and you got the right mix, the right chemistry, and voila, you got a good, fun product on the field. I think Nebraska fans are really taking this Indiana team seriously because, yeah, you can knock their strength of schedule, but you still got to win the games. And Nebraska was favored in all 6 of their games, and they lost one. So I think Nebraska's schedule has played a role in terms of taking teams seriously, where Rutgers was coming off a 4-0 start. They took them seriously and had a dogfight with them down to the wire. And I think Indiana has their full attention. The storyline of them being in the top 10 offensively and top 10 defensively has really grabbed a hold of Husker fans who are very knowledgeable, and they're ready for Indiana. This is no cakewalk for Nebraska. They are taking these guys very seriously.
Nebraska does what well, Andy? They're winning games based on doing what that is going to be Indiana's challenge?
Defense. They play defense, and I think that's a great matchup. Can Indiana contain Nebraska's front, and can Nebraska get to the quarterback and disrupt Indiana's offense? Because I think the knock on Nebraska last year, they were minus 17 in turnover margin. Minus 17 in turnover margin. This year they're plus 6. So that goes a long way. They've created turnovers, and they've been holding on to the football. They haven't been great offensively, but defensively, Nebraska has been great. Special teams has been an abomination. They've been awful on special teams. So there's an advantage for India.
Yeah, that tips the cap on my other question, which was going to be, the area that if you're Kurt Cignetti, that you are preaching to your team that they really need to exploit where Nebraska is susceptible would be what? Would it be that? Special teams?
Special teams. Nebraska's had 5 kicks blocked already. 2 punt block last week. One of them or the last game against Rutgers, one of them should have been a touchdown. And they had field goals missed to the point at Purdue where when Nebraska finally scored a touchdown, we wondered if they would go for 2. That's how bad the long snapping and the kicking was. So I think special teams has been a real weakness for this team, but something that they've addressed during this bye week since they are coming off a bye as well.
Andy, after the abysmal stint in the NFL, granted over an organization that appears to be a tire fire in its own right in the Carolina Panthers, the selling point on Matt Rule was this is a guy that knows how to run a college program. There were a lot of reasons that he was, an attraction of Nebraska. And here he is in year 2, and as you mentioned, off to the impressive start so far. But there's an interesting piece in The Athletic today that goes over freshman Dylan Raiola and his work ethic, his focus, and just the partnership between him and Matt Rule. How has that partnership between those two impacted how quick and effective the Cornhuskers have been this year?
Well, Dylan's a guy that he's talented enough to keep you in every football game. And I say if you got a quarterback and a defense, you're going to be in a lot of games. And Dylan is a guy that's going to keep you in a lot of games. And that dynamic between the quarterback and coach, as you guys know, is so important. And when Dylan's the first player in the building and he goes to knock on Matt Rule's door and he bumps him in the head because Matt Rule's taking a nap and slept in his office, and Dylan's waking up the coach to get to work, that's telling you something. So I think the ability that Matt Rule was able to kind of turn the tables and get Dylan to Lincoln was step number one, and I think everybody's seen his talent. He's just got to mature. He had a real probably his weakest game of the six so far against Rutgers. He didn't play well, but I think you're looking at a bounce-back week this week against Indiana, and I think they're confident that they can move the ball even with against an Indiana team that can get after the passer with Kamara and are so stingy defensively. I do think Nebraska thinks they can move the ball. The key will be, can they get the running game going with their running backs? And that's something they haven't been able to do so far in those first 6 games.
Andy Kendi is our guest. He is with KETV in Omaha, Nebraska. Andy, are those Omaha steaks really made in Omaha?
Yeah, they are.
Have you had them? Are they pretty good?
Right here. Yeah, we thank you for your support. Holiday season's coming up. You should get like a discount code. Just put the code query into the inbox and you get a 20% off.
That actually probably does work somewhere, right? There's some query guy somewhere that gets some kickback from that.
Right.
Andy, the only time I've been to a Nebraska football game. Now I got in touch with you a couple years ago. I was going through Lincoln and they were playing Michigan and we went to Barry's, which was the big bar there. It was fun. I met really nice people there. They were great. But then Nebraska came here for the Big Ten title game, and they were taking on Wisconsin. This was a handful of years ago.
Yeah.
And I met a guy at the game itself that was a semi-driver that was dressed completely in Nebraska gear and kept inviting me to go out to his cab to visit and see his pet raccoon. And I declined. Are Nebraska people pretty hospitable, and that was on the up and up, or did I possibly avoid some sort of a serial killer Netflix documentary?
No, I think they're on the up and up. I really think that they're legit, and I probably think that there was a raccoon in his cab.
Okay.
I don't think there was any foul play coming your way.
He was wearing a helmet hat that he'd made out of a hubcap. I also found that odd, but also eccentric, right?
Yeah, and you'll notice this weekend, boys. I mean, I looked at the landscape coming into Indy. You got a lot of football options with Purdue and Oregon and Nebraska, Indiana. Colts are in town. What a great weekend for you guys. But Nebraska fans, if they do nothing else, they support their team through thick and thin, and they will be there in droves. Because if you guys remember, they've only been to Indiana once since joining the Big Ten. That was in 2016. And so this is one of those games that if you're trying to knock off stadiums off the ledger, off the bucket list to get all the Big Ten teams, you got to get to Bloomington this midday. Who knows when they're going to come back?
Listen, Andy, I'm going to the Purdue-Oregon game Friday night just because they're going to shock the world. The Boilers are at Ross-Ade, and then we're trying to find bodies of water not named the Wabash where we're going to throw the goalposts in. So So if you want to come up, I mean, it's only a 2-hour drive from where you're going to be staying. You let me know, and you can join us.
That sounds good. I'll help you toss it in the Wabash.
There you go. All right, Andy, travel safely, man. I know you're coming out for it. It's going to be a big one. Nebraska and Indiana, everybody, I know this much, will be wearing red or white for sold-out Memorial Stadium. Travel safe, Andy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Good talking to you, man.
All right, Andy Kendi again from KETV in Omaha, Nebraska. Andy is a native, like our last guest, Joel Erickson of Wisconsin. And not that anybody cares, but I'll tell you, during a time that I was pursuing a job in Green Bay is where I met Andy. He was working there at the time, went to Milwaukee, and now finds himself in Omaha and has been there for a number of years as one of the established people covering Nebraska. So good information there. And he's right. Those Nebraska fans will travel. It's going to be a fun environment in Bloomington come Saturday. Jimmy's picks of the day, plays of the day, I should say, brought to you by Greenfield Signs. Next.
Today's plays of the day brought to you by the fine folks at Greenfield Signs and Lighting. Greenfield Signs, a professional, comprehensive sign company with 2 locations in central Indiana. They'll take your signage ideas and take hold of the project from design all the way to delivery. Family owned and managed for more than 4 generations. You don't often get a second chance to make a first impression. Make the most out of your first opportunity with the fine folks at Greenfield Signs and Lighting. For more information, go to greenfieldsigns.com. Today's plays of the day will start first with Game 3 of the National League Championship Series as the Dodgers travel to New York to take on the Mets. We'll take the LA Dodgers to win on the money line over the New York Mets. That right now, basically a pick 'em depending on the sports book that you look at. And that same game will also take under 4.5 total strikeouts for Mets ace Luis Severino. In the WNBA Finals, Game 3 action is in Minnesota. Give me the New York Liberty to win on the money line over the Minnesota Lynx. Eddie, any plays from you?
I like the over 7.5 between the Dodgers and the Mets tonight. 2 bad starting pitchers, pretty much. In terms of how this one maps out and projects. That means I will be taking the under for Walker Buehler out or whatever you can get it at just because he has not been good. Right now, 14.5. I would like to get that at 15.5, but I still don't see him making it through 5 innings. Primarily a fastball pitcher, and that is what this Mets offense has obliterated this postseason.
Where do you subscribe on the 9-mile-an-hour winds, possible gusts, cold weather, that kind of thing in the playoffs for your total?
See, they don't really rely on the home run ball too much. The New York Mets, they have a lot of guys that, Lindor obviously and Pete Alonso, but they have a lot of guys that are contact first and are more line drive hitters, so that doesn't really impact me or come to mind at all when you talk about, the weather and the wind and stuff like that. So as long as you're a team that can make contact and you can generate offense that way, it doesn't really bother me.
Those are your plays of the day.
How about this one?
Okay.
Can you throw in for me? Can we go money line on the Buffalo Sabres against the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Absolutely.
Tonight?
Absolutely.
I have no idea what the money line is or any of that, like what the odds are. I just know the Sabres are 1-3, but the one team they beat was the Florida Panthers. Brendan King, I'm sure, was devastated, although we know he doesn't follow the Panthers to the Stanley Cup final, right?
Basically a pick 'em, by the way. They're minus 102.
They are a slight underdog.
Yeah.
Who's a slight underdog?
The Sabres.
Well, they're on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
But let me tell you something. They're awesome on the road. They got beat really bad in Prague, but that doesn't count. It does, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
I know nothing about them. I just know they have – it's a cool logo, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Sabres?
Yes.
And then we're going to go to Buffalo, and my 2 buddies and I, we're going to raise hell because we're all in on the Sabres. And then when they hoist the cup, I'm going to be there and say I was there in the ground floor because they're terrible.
Sure.
What does your shirt exactly mean, by the way? I've been trying to figure that out for 3 hours now.
So I've had it for about 3 or 4 years.
Can you explain to the listening audience?
Yeah, sorry, my fault. So it says Extend 48 on it, and it has a facade of Yankee Stadium on the top of it. It's a T-shirt I bought in the 2021 offseason because I really liked Anthony Rizzo as a Cub. I was very happy when the Yankees traded for him, and there were rumblings whether or not they were going to extend him or not. Right now he's playing through fractured fingers and just being a beast out there, so I figured I'd wear the Extend 48 Anthony Rizzo.
How many New York Yankees shirts would you say you own?
Don't ask questions you don't know the answer to, Jake.
48? Is that about right?
No. I actually, you know what's funny? This is how well I know this show. I counted last night just for you. I would say 13 Yankee shirts. Not including jerseys.
If you counted, you would know the answer. That didn't sound like a definitive answer.
Well, I didn't count 2 that are in the laundry bin.
What % of your wardrobe is related to either the Kansas City Chiefs or New York Yankees?
40%.
Okay. Any other teams you have represented in there?
It's a miscellaneous soccer jerseys.
Kits, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Lionel Messi, Manchester.
Yeah, there's a Manchester City kit in there. There's Lionel Messi Miami shirt. Because
so wait a minute. So when I go to Manchester,
yeah,
is there something you need me to bring back from Manchester when I go there?
No, because he didn't bring you anything back from his trip. Remember?
Well, but I got punished for the last trip that he went on.
Well, I did
unless
too.
we're extending that.
So.
So we got to bring me down now.
But
well.
I mean, in all honesty, if one of your favorite clubs, as we call it, is based there, I mean, I should get you something from there, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe tour the stadium because. But they will not be in season. I'm going there in July.
Yeah, they won't. But
they will not be in season, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on I went to the stadium. I took a tour. I went in the gift shop. I don't know.
Oh, so you did go? You've been to Manchester?
Yeah, I went in. When I brought you guys back the.
I knew you went to London. I did not.
Yeah, maybe I got on a train and I went and toured Man City.
I know you get a kick out of this here in a second. Go ahead.
It was. I mean, it was great. It was busy. It didn't rain. There was no cold It was cold because it was December, but there was no rain or ugly weather. Sun was out the whole time. City was very nice. Food was good. Yeah, it was a good time.
So Olivia, my girlfriend, she is on vacation right now. She's in Florida. And she texted me, and the question was, want anything from the gummy shop?
Oh, well.
Man.
I said, what kind?
So
and
what
she goes,
flavor is she getting you?
She
Watermelon?
So she sends me a picture and says, this one. Like, that's very helpful. And it's a picture, and it's got cotton candy.
Cherry berry. They're all the same flavor that you have to choose from here. Sounds like it. What? Now, wait a minute. Did you zoom in to the pictures in the background?
Nope.
Yeah, let me tell you. Somebody has creative borderline PG-13 art on the wall back there. There you go, Eddie.
In regards to your trip abroad in the summer, like I'm a big mass transit fan. I don't know why. I love subways. I love trains. The idea of just speed rail that they have over there is awesome.
Yeah.
Like to be able to get from London to Manchester in like basically an hour and 20 is awesome.
I do know that we are going to Liverpool, which is a 30-minute train ride from Manchester, right?
Yeah.
Now, how big, by U.S. terms, Manchester was how big? Like it felt like a city of how big?
It felt like
more Indy or more Chicago?
Cleveland, is that in the middle?
Yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland.
Okay, that's not bad.
Terms of size, yeah.
Okay, so what we know from the Colts today, to recap that before John comes in, is that Anthony Richardson is out on the practice field. That we know, right?
Yes.
Jonathan Taylor, on the other hand, is still a question mark as to his availability on Sunday. I do think that Jonathan Taylor is going to go, but, you know, as he talked about last night in an interview that he did, I mean, he was rather vague about it. I get that there's a little bit of gamesmanship that comes into that aspect of it, but he is not out on the practice field. But he is one guy that I do think that you can probably just keep the leg elevated and keep ice on it, and then when Sunday rolls around, you put him in, he's plug and play. But we'll see what happens with that.
One other name addition, by the way, Kevin Bowen had reported that he did not see EJ Speed out there today. That was about 45 minutes ago from Kevin.
Now, was Speed nursing anything with which we're – because Wednesday is – if guys are going to get days off, it would be Wednesday, right?
Based on trends, yes.
So that's interesting to watch, and we'll see what happens. JV has walked in.
There he is. All right.
John is, I believe, wearing – I'm looking here – an REO Speedwagon shirt. Now, they're done, right?
They're done. I think so. I think some guy in the band got hurt. Didn't feel great. Cronin said, you know what? Screw it. Hold on a second, Ed. All right. But they'll be back.
You think so?
Too much money in it.
So, John, what you got lined up on the big program?
We're going to do Justice Ellison, running back of IU, who is an incredibly interesting dude, coming up in the 5 o'clock hour.
Nice.
Yeah, got about 6 touchdowns on the season, 6.5 per carry, and a cool guy.
They've had a lot of guys really play well so far.
They have. The Kegerator set him up. He said, this guy is really fun, enjoyable to talk to, and I trust the Kegerator. Jeff Keg.
Yeah, I like the fact you call him the Kegerator. He might live in the Roach Motel or Shingles or one of those houses down there, right?
He is a good guy. So,
all right.
No callback last night, I guess, right?
What's that?
You called me. I was playing basketball, sitting out because all these old farts I play with are taking so damn long to finish a damn game. I go, can any of you clowns hit anything? So can I go back out there before 11 o'clock?
That's right. We were on the phone, and then you know what happened is I took I took some cough meds so that I could do the show today,
sick?
and I think it knocked me out. I just have like a head cold. I don't feel bad at all.
Is that a logo or a spot on your shirt right there?
That's a logo. That's
it
Roots
looked like
Canada.
A spot on your shirt for a minute.
Well, it could be because
did Shannon get that shirt for you? That's really nice.
This is nice. Thank you. I got this in Toronto at Roots Canada. That's where
every time you wear something nice, I figure that Shannon purchased it.
You have a lot of trust in me.
I know, but look at me. I got this cheap iron-on REO logo on the front.
Here's the thing. Do you guys find it by any stretch of do you guys find it odd that John is aware of Shannon's fashion sense?
I like Shannon.
I'm aware.
Great deal.
I know. Every time your name comes in.
No wonder you guys never go out with me.
He's so nice.
Oh, hell yeah.
What's JMV doing?
I think, yeah.
Ever since the Indiana State run last year, things have just been
if we crossed paths before you guys did, you might be in trouble.
every time. Actually, just the other day, she said, is Indiana State going to be good this year? And I said, I'm not sure why. Well, because we could go to another game with JV. Like, wow, okay, fine. All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow. Thanks for listening to Query & Company.